All right, Dave, we're back finally. It's been a long time.
It's been a bit.
I honestly can't remember the last one we did of this. Do you remember at all?
I've seen some stuff that you threw on there, but the last one that we did has been a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, we've gotten together a couple times, played through some games.
Times of Lore, I think, might have been one of the last
Yeah,
ones.
Times of War that I actually did a review for.
Yeah.
We did Battle of Battle of Olympus.
Yeah.
Which is fun. I don't know. I'm not super into it. But I think that's about it. I can't remember the last podcast we've done. So it's been quite a bit. You've had some stuff come up. I've been busy. It's just, we finally got together.
Yep.
And we're getting together today to go over the top 40-ish NES games that were part of the Reddit. Top 50 NES games part of the Reddit subreddit. God damn, I can't even speak. The NES subreddit of Reddit.
Yeah, RNES or whatever.
Yeah, and we had some thoughts about it. I hit you up last week, and I said, take a look at this list and let me know if you have some thoughts. And he texts back like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's food for thought.
Yeah, there's some stuff coming out of this that we don't agree with. I think there's some problems with this list, and we'll kind of get into that. So
yeah, it's a popularity list. It's debatable if it's a good top 40 list.
Yeah, and there's a lot of discussions that was happening in the threads to try to get certain games on there that just didn't happen. You know, we'll go into that. Dragon Warrior 4, for example, for me, just didn't make it.
Crime.
Just absolute crime against gaming.
Yeah.
But, you know, we'll kind of grab into that. I think, unless you wanted to do something different, we're just going to kind of go from the top down and just kind of go with our reactions, if it deserves to be there, if it should be lower, higher.
Yeah.
If something else deserved to be on the list that's not on the list.
Yeah, we can maybe cover the didn't get on the list later unless something's relevant as we go.
Yeah, and then once we get into certain like areas, there's other discussions that were happening on the threads that like games that were being kind of pushed for that I don't believe deserve to be pushed for. So we'll kind of get into that when we get there. That's more like the top 20s. You get kind of weird for a while. So
yeah.
We'll start off at number 1. Dave, Legend of Zelda. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it's Zelda.
No, I mean, it's got amazing graphics and sound, especially for such an early NES game.
Yeah, everyone knows the Zelda theme. It's stuck in your head forever.
The impact on gaming history. I mean, it's hard to think of a game with a bigger impact other than Mario and Sonic, a few others. It's up there in the top few, most impactful games.
Yeah, had the badass gold cart. Everyone had it.
Still hugely fun to play today. Huge replay value.
Yeah, spun a giant franchise.
Multiple 2 quests. Do the thing where you get the little. I used to get the cards from Nintendo Power that would have the map of Zelda on them. The postcards you fill in, and I would take those and fill them in all the secrets. If you didn't want to go buy the manual, or buy the guide, you'd make your own thing. Because there's like almost something in everywhere in the overworld. There's almost a cave that you open up, or a bush you burn or something, and you could find stuff in most of the screens, right?
Yeah.
So you could spend so much time on that game.
And I would say nowadays, if you've never played the original Zelda, it's probably a good game to use a guide or a walkthrough for.
Yeah.
Because there is some stuff that's Nintendo hard cryptic that maybe you would have had to use Nintendo Power or something back in the day. Like using the whistle, for example, to drain the pond. That's one like, okay, who knows? But
it's not the worst game where, I mean, it does give you some hints. It's not the worst game about that, but it's not the best.
Dungeon 5 where you had to walk up 5 times in the one particular area.
Yeah.
That might be pretty hard to find out today when you're just dicking around with it, but
I will say maybe one sort of downside again is it's an early NES game, and there's some baggage there. It didn't, if it used a newer mapper or something, it might have been even better, and we'll get into that a little later. I think it holds up pretty well, even against something like Crystallis, which is kind of similarly good, but a later NES game. But
yeah,
that it does so well.
It doesn't look as polished as like a later NES title, but it still plays great. It's one of those games where if I plug it in to test it or something, I just end up playing it for an hour and can't put it down. So,
and to me, it's super impactful for the NES because games like Legend of Zelda showed what a console could do for kind of the first time, I feel like, in console history. Whereas before then, they were all chasing the arcade games. Like, that's the only thing anyone largely cared about for those earlier consoles is, can we get an arcade perfect? Can our ColecoVision have an arcade perfect Donkey Kong, or pretty close to it? Whereas with Zelda, you went from having, an arcade perfect Super Mario Brothers, which is great, to, hey, this is something you can't really do in the arcade. Like, this is kind of a paradigm shift here where we're doing an entirely different kind of gaming here now, versus just chasing arcade ports.
Yeah, it's spun off genres, and surprisingly enough, there's not a lot of original Zelda clones out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's
a few,
a couple.
Yeah,
on the NES, and then Super Nintendo had a bunch, I guess. But
yeah,
for a while there, it was just kind of Zelda, and it was kind of the king. So yeah, no problems with number one.
Yeah.
Number two, Super Mario 3. I think a lot of people would interswap them, and that's fine for me. I don't.
Yeah.
Whatever. Mario 3. It's the best Mario title on NES, unless you're like a huge Mario 1 stan. But
it's hard to think of a better platformer on the NES.
It's like perfect music. The graphics look great for what they are. I mean, it plays perfect. It's got a shit ton of worlds. It's actually incredibly hard if you don't have like all the whistles and just cheese through the entire game.
Yeah, really the only flaw maybe is the fact that there is no password save or anything like that. It's a one-sitting game, which for that game, if you don't use the whistles, it's long.
Yeah. Like, I had a buddy over, Ryan, I think you met him, but like,
yeah,
we probably played it for like 3 straight hours and got to maybe level 6 or 7 before it was just like, we tapped out.
And if you actually wanted to try all the, I mean, there's so many weird levels that you might skip on a speed run.
That are fun.
Like the giant world.
Love the giant world.
There's just so many, like the swimming worlds are actually fun because of the frog.
You get the frog suit, the Tanuki suit. Like, you can skip all that stuff. My favorite was always the little like mitten that you could get into.
Yeah.
The little
the Karibo
like,
shoe.
The sock, whatever it is.
Karibo shoe, I think is what it's
called. Is
that
what it is?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
It's always one of my
little
favorites.
Green sock, yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Mario 3 is zero problems with. Deserves its spot to me.
I will say I don't love it as much as I used to, but that's just because I, moved on from platformers as my primary game type to more to other things. But it doesn't really get any worse. I just don't love platformers as much.
I think I just played it so much that I don't want to play it anymore.
That too.
Yeah, because as a kid, it was like anytime you go over to somebody's house, it's Mario 3.
Yeah. For
the longest time. Game Genie codes are great for Mario 3, by the way.
Yeah.
I remember the Skywalker code, and then the code to give it the sledgehammer suit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you just cheese through all the levels throwing sledgehammers.
The Hammer Brothers suit is so much fun in that game. that was the big thing in that game. It's just getting you could get the suits and you'd save them in your inventory and you could use them on whatever level you want. Yep. Certain levels just completely changed with certain suits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could start out because you could save and cache items and power ups between levels. So one level you might just use a star and just cheese through the entire thing.
Certain levels use a P-Wing and you get to weird places in the ceiling that you couldn't otherwise get to.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool secrets in that game that you didn't need Nintendo Power or anything to beat it, but it sure did help. So But yeah, number 3, Mega Man 2, which
very good placement.
Fine. Yeah. It's a great game. It's like the perfect original Mega Man game. You could argue 3. If you like the powered up blaster, you could argue 4, maybe 6 even. But
they're all pretty much good. But 2, I think, felt like the most complete storyline, the most like the best suite of Robot Masters, possibly the best music, probably the best music. Yeah. It's just the most fun in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it controls perfectly. I mean, it's just.
Coolest bosses. I mean, what Mega Man bosses do you remember, or mini bosses or whatever, other than the big dragon, the Guts Dozer? Like those things are just.
Is the end of 2? Is that the alien that you fight? Like the little alien creature you use the bubble on.
The bubble lead.
Okay,
yeah. Which I always called the bubble lead, but I think bubble lead makes more sense. Lead bubble.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Yeah. I don't think any of us have problems with Mega Man at 3. 4 is where I start to have problems, though.
Agreed.
Metroid is Reddit's top 4 of the top 10.
As much as I love Metroid, and I love Metroid, I think I love it more for its impact on the industry, Metroidvanias, than the game itself. I mean, it's still a great game, especially for as early in the NES as it is, and it's got great replay value for such an early title, but it could go lower on the list.
See, here's where I get caught up on the original Metroid. And this is kind of where people get caught up in the original Metal Gear as well, is the sequel to this game is so astronomically amazing.
Yes.
That they think that the original was amazing as well.
Yeah.
Like, the original Metroid has a lot of problems.
Yes.
For one, doesn't have a world map. Yeah. I don't know why it's not in there. There's like ROM hacks that have a world map in it, make the game so much better.
So much better.
It controls great. It plays great. The music, it doesn't have a lot of tracks, I guess, but it kind of fits the game perfectly.
I will say I don't give it a lot of shit for that stuff because when it came out, again, we were in the middle of that paradigm shift where, they were chasing arcade games. And then some of these early, I think it was like an 87 era game. Like,
it was an early one.
Super early.
Yeah.
So the teams making this stuff were just, they were crossing new ground. So they couldn't thought of everything.
Yeah. Well, did this come out before or after the original Zelda? I don't remember.
It was around the same time.
Okay.
It wasn't the same team, but it was one of the first party Nintendo teams, I want to say.
Because Zelda had a janky ass map in it, but it had a janky ass map at least.
Right.
The original Metroid, either you got to have a good memory, kind of get used to playing the game, or you got to kind of draw it out, or Nintendo Power.
But again, I don't, it's debatable how much they were comparing notes, right? I mean, they were throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck, I think, at that point. So they wouldn't necessarily, I mean, they weren't even sure the D-pad yet was the be-all, end-all, right?
Right. But yeah, the original Metroid, I like it. I don't even like it in the top 10, to be honest. For me, it's probably somewhere in the top 20.
Well, you might disagree with me later, but there's a certain other game that I might swap it with that shows up later on the list. A sister game, you might say. Well, we'll get to that.
Okay. But yeah, no, I do not like Metroid at 4. I think a lot of people say Super Metroid's one of the best games of all time, therefore Metroid's one of the best games of all time, and I would just say no.
It definitely belongs on this list, but it could probably go lower on the list.
Number 5, the original Castlevania.
Yeah.
I would
feel the same way.
I would say it's too high.
It's too high.
But I do love the original Castlevania.
I would swap it with 3 on the list.
See, but I think the original Castlevania is more fun than 3.
I don't know. I could see...
3's a better game. Don't get me wrong.
3's a better game.
3 looks better.
Yeah.
It sounds... I mean, you could argue it sounds like it does sound better. But like the original Metroid has like the tracks that just stick in your mind.
Original Castlevania.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of the same tracks.
Sure,
some
but
of them
like,
are remixed on 3. But
yeah. The original Castlevania, like those music tracks live in my brain.
They do.
3 has all that same stuff, more characters. It looks better, more power ups, and technically better music.
Yeah.
Sure, like you could swap them and that would be fine. I would say for nostalgia case, I love the original Castlevania. 5's probably too high for me.
Yeah, if it had like a password feature, if it had a few other things, like
it's like a short game though.
It is.
The original.
It's just one of those where you get really frustrated at the end, and then you just have to keep beating your head against the wall to get through it, and you can't just come back later. It's kind of annoying.
You have to cheese some of the bosses, like Frankenstein, for example, or Death. Like you cannot actually. I mean, you can beat them normally with a whip, but.
We did
most part not.
We did our thing, a while back where we went through all the Castlevania games, and I actually went through and legitimately beat the originals for the first time in forever. And 3, as difficult and as pulling out your teeth difficulty as it is, you can like take a break and come back. Whereas 1, you're just like, I gotta beat this game. And
3's just got so many like asshole designs in the game.
It really does.
The goddamn birds are everywhere later on, and those gargoyles can just piss off. I hate the gargoyles in that game.
Yeah, so I wouldn't argue too much if you put either one higher. Personally, I would put 3 higher.
Sure.
But
the 3 is technically the superior game, and I couldn't argue about it. I mean, some people just like it better. I just think Castlevania 1's more fun.
I could see that.
Probably wouldn't have Castlevania 1 in my top 5, though.
No.
But
I probably wouldn't either.
Yeah, if you wanted to argue Castlevania 3 in your top 10, sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say no.
Yeah.
Number 6, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!
That belongs
there. Yeah, whatever.
That belongs there.
It could go higher depending on how much you like it. It could go a tiny bit lower, maybe, but like, no. I think honestly, Metroid should not be there, and Mike Tyson should be 4. Let's be real.
I mean, I don't think I've ever played another boxing game I really actually enjoy outside of the Punch-Out series.
I mean,
they're barely boxing. They're rhythm games, really.
There's some that get kind of fun, like later on in the Xbox 360 era when it kind of becomes more realistic.
Sure.
But yeah, other than that, they're kind of junk for the most part, other than Punch-Out!
Yeah, Punch-Out! Just nailed it. Nothing to improve other than adding more boxers and maybe a couple little mechanics.
Yeah.
When the Wii version, you get to fight Donkey Kong at the end or whatever.
Yeah,
fun stuff like that.
But yeah, there's so many memorable characters, and the fights are all fun, and they're not always the same, and whatever.
And there's like a right way to do it, but then there's also certain tricks. Like if you hit them at just the right time, you can generate stars.
Yeah, you can throw like good counter punches that'll generate stars, or just straight up knock them out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very in-depth game.
Amazing game.
Yeah.
And that's another one where the music just lives in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good.
Yeah, love it.
I always remember. I can't even say it out loud, but the old "You the Man Now Dog."
Oh yes.
Stole my bike. Themes.
Yes.
I obviously can't repeat it, but
oh yeah, the music that plays when they're riding the bike is like just out of the blue, just even better than some of the other music in the game for no reason.
It's so good.
Just good, yeah.
But yeah. Number 7, Contra. I don't have an argument against this. You could argue, I guess, Super C.
I don't know that I would put it as high as certain other shootery type games that come to mind.
What do you have as a better shooter than Contra and Super C?
Life Force.
Oh, okay, but that's a different style.
They're not quite the same style, so that's why. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the kind of game Contra is a run and gun shooter. There really isn't a better one.
Instead of like a space shooter.
I just find it weird that Contra is higher on the list than Life Force. To me, they would maybe both be high, maybe both top 10. But
I think it's more of a just nostalgia thing as well.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows Contra. Everyone liked Contra. Contra's hard as balls.
Yeah.
I still can't beat Contra without the Konami code.
Yeah, agreed. Same way.
I just tried it again the other day, and the last level, there's so many like little tricky dicky things that get you killed.
But you have to memorize every one of those weird things and be able to instinctively pull that out of your memory.
Yeah, but once you're great at Contra, you can just beat it outright, and it doesn't give you any challenge. But
yeah,
I guess I don't have an argument. You could argue, I guess, Super C if you wanted like a Contra style game in there, but whatever.
Yeah, maybe Super C might do a little better job of having different play styles a little more so.
Yeah, it's a little bit newer.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Pick and choose, whatever.
But yeah, all the weapons are fun. I mean, that's the big thing is, compare it to something like Commando or even something like Gunsmoke. Like you have more variety of weapons and you have more.
Yeah, and you could say some of them are complete horseshit though in Contra. Like the laser sucks.
Yeah. But at least it's there,
I guess. Is it better than the regular shooter though? Kinda, but not.
It might be for certain bosses, maybe. But if you know how to use it right.
Yeah, it's stronger, but it has that weird thing where if you like tap it, it resets the cast on it. It's really weird, but
yeah.
Whatever. That's too much about Contra. It's a shallow game, but it's fun as hell.
Yeah,
it's better than the arcade version. I'll give it.
Oh,
that.
Absolutely.
The arcade version kind of sucks balls.
You got to give it credit for taking the arcade version, and it's technically not as good in some ways. Although I think the music is arguably better.
I'd say it's more catchy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more catchy, but yeah, they managed to do an arcade port and improve on the arcade. That doesn't happen super often.
No. Yeah, the arcade just has like more stuff, but it's a bad amount of more stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Number 8, I don't have a problem with. This is actually kind of what I voted for, but Super Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah, it's probably the best sports game for the NES. It's almost got to be the best.
Yeah,
sports
I would say it is. I mean, it's a license. You have all the teams.
Yeah.
You have Bo Jackson.
You have just an absurd amount of you can play manager mode. You can play you can do trades and all that stuff. You can it has the arcade play style, but it has some of the simulation-y elements in there if you care to use them.
Yeah, I mean, just more importantly, it's just fun.
It's just fun.
It's super fun, and it's a great 2-player game.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even have to be good at football or like know anything about football to just know there's a run play and a pass play.
Yeah.
And just kind of like read the defense a little bit.
Yeah, and don't cheat by looking at your the other player's controller when they're pushing the buttons. So you get to make popcorn, as they say, when everyone rushes in and just scrambles in and you see bodies flying everywhere. It's great.
There's a lot of chances for like interceptions and stuff. That's it's not like a great simulation game as far as like the gameplay goes.
No,
but it's a great like arcade style NES port. It works perfect. I would say everyone needs to have Super Tecmo Bowl. It's great.
Yeah. And it's better than Tecmo Bowl, which itself is a really good game.
Yeah, but it's just Tecmo Bowl with better stuff and
more teams. Yeah.
It's what a sequel should be to a game.
Yep.
Number 9, I mean, it's the original Mario Bros.
Super Mario Bros.
I guess. I don't have a problem with it.
I mean, for importance in the industry, it's hard to, even right up there with Zelda, possibly even more so than Zelda. I mean, you could argue Mario was who brought the video gaming back to North America. I mean, we still had computers, but we kind of lost consoles for a while.
Yeah.
And Mario and Zelda brought it back. Arguably Mario more.
Mario's one of those weird ones. It's not one of my favorite games at all.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's hard to just deny that it probably is a top 10 game. Everyone had it. Everyone kind of started NES gaming with Mario.
And again,
it plays great.
It's a great arcade port, and it was a great arcade game at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in Japan it might have come out on the console version, and they made the Versus version of it or whatever. So it's debatable if you call it an arcade game or not. But when I first encountered it, I think it was in the arcade, and I loved it there. And especially the music going into the underworld and stuff. That's another one of those living rent free in my head kind of thing.
Yeah.
That underworld soundtrack and then just getting to play that at home, it was like, that was where I first was like, this is an insane console where I can play these truly arcade. And again, I had a ColecoVision, I had Donkey Kong, I had some pretty good arcade ports, but Nintendo took it to the next level with Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
Super Mario
Brothers. I love how fast it plays. It was kind of one of those original. You play the arcade games, and they're kind of like slow and plotting for the most part. Then you get on Mario, and it's like, man, you can run fast, you can jump over stuff, the controls are like perfect, you can duck, shoot fireball, like it just works. It's like a perfect beginner game for a system.
And you have neat stuff like the Minus World and the Warp Zones, and
people are still breaking it today,
yes,
like 40 years later or whatever it is. So.
Yep.
Number 10, I don't think we're gonna agree with. The original Final Fantasy.
I would consider it one of the 3 best RPGs on the system.
Sure.
Maybe not the best of those 3. Maybe number 3.
Yeah, it's one of those games. Like, I was playing it again the other day as just part of the other video thing that I'm doing, and it's like, man, I really do enjoy the original Final Fantasy.
It's fun.
It's cool. It's fun. It's very customizable, but it has problems.
It has flaws.
It has a lot of bugs.
Yep. It has spells that just don't work.
Spells that don't work. Characters that are just worse than other characters.
Yep.
It
has mechanics like the thing where you attack an enemy and someone else kills you. Queue up who's going to attack one enemy. The enemies die. The one enemy dies, and then that person doesn't attack somebody else.
Yeah,
which
they just attack dead air.
They fit well, and that was common in Dragon Quest 2 as well, and some other games I think, but like Dragon Quest 3 and 4 fixed it.
Yeah, every now and then, like in Super Nintendo, I think there's a bunch of games like that too.
I think Final Fantasy 2 on the NES fixed it as well, or 3 at least did.
It's always hit or miss depending on just whatever the developers wanted to do for any given game.
Right.
That playstyle always pisses me off, but it's never been a deal breaker for me.
No, it's still fun. I play Final Fantasy so many times, all the way through, so many times.
Some of the fights in the original Final Fantasy just take so damn long, though.
Yeah.
Like, if you find like 6 enemies early in the game, it's like a 5-minute fight each one. It just takes a while.
It's weird because that's a game where you need some kind of mage, not necessarily the black mage.
Yeah, the black mage isn't.
Yeah, I usually went for red mages because you need somebody to clear the screen.
Yeah,
you need to be able to do those lit 2, fire 2 spells or the harm spells from your white mage. And at a certain point in the game, then you get items, and that doesn't matter anymore. You get Zeus's gauntlet or whatever, and Zeus's hammer or whatever.
Yeah, use the items to heal instead of mage spells to heal. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't have it at 10. I do like Dragon Warrior 4. I know you're probably like 3 a little bit better than 4.
No, I like 4. 4 is the best RPG on the console. 3 is close. Final Fantasy, I enjoy Final Fantasy 1 and Dragon Quest 4 almost equally, but I think 4 is light years better as a game.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a deeper story. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I love Dragon Warrior 4. Final Fantasy, for me, is a very well-liked game.
Yeah.
I would probably swap them if you had to have an RPG in the top 10.
Yeah. I would swap in this list. We're spoilers. Where you could swap it with Dragon Quest 3, but again, where's Dragon Quest 4?
Yeah, Dragon Quest 4 does not show up. Dragon Warrior 4, whatever you want to call it, but it does not show up at all in the top 40, which is absurd. I mean, we'll get there because it gets weirder when you get to the 20s, 30s, and 40s.
And again, this is where you start to see it's kind of a popularity thing because by the time Dragon Quest 4 came out, Dragon Warrior 4 came out, the only people who were paying attention to that were hardcore NES RPG nerds, and a lot of other people had moved on to the Genesis or the Super Nintendo or whatever.
Right, so, where there's other great RPGs and you don't need to go back.
Yeah, so they're not as nostalgic. So yeah, it makes sense why it isn't on the list.
I'm at least glad that on this list, Dragon Warrior 1 didn't take precedence over 2, 3, or 4.
Which I almost would have thought it would have because we had that Nintendo Power thing where you subscribed to Nintendo Power and you got Dragon Warrior 1 for free. Right. So a lot of people had it for that reason. But
Dragon Warrior 1 is a very primitive Dragon Warrior game.
Yes.
one character, grindy as hell.
Huge JRPG nerds need apply only. Yeah.
Yeah, I beat it last year, and like I liked it, but it is the worst of the 4.
I am excited to see when they do the remake of 1+2, because I like the remake of 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be fun. I will definitely play that.
Number 11, The Adventures of Link, Zelda 2.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, people bag on this game, but it belongs high on this list. It is an actually really fun game. And again, when Zelda 2 came out, who knew what a Zelda sequel should be?
Sure. I mean, they took it in a weird direction, borderline experimental, but...
arguably in some ways less weird than Mario 2. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we all know Mario 2 wasn't meant to be Mario 2, but...
Right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Zelda 2, I mean, probably the biggest problem is just the uneven challenge level. You know, you hit that Death Mountain wall.
Yeah, it's a little cryptic. It's a little where the hell do I go type of style game, but...
And weirdness with the going back to the beginning of the game when you lose all your lives instead of, like, restarting in the middle of the dungeon or the palace.
Or the asshole design where you find the 1-ups in the world map, but, I mean... when you use them, they don't respawn or anything. Yeah,
you're supposed to know that you more or less are supposed to save them till the end of the game and then get them all and then go to the final palace with like.
But would you know? Probably not.
No,
your first playthrough, obviously.
You wouldn't.
But yeah, I'm not a huge Zelda 2 fan, but like I get that people love the game.
I do love that game.
It's whatever.
I will. That's another one of those I had and played to death. I was messing around with the fairy glitch in the dungeon in the palace and some of that. There's a lot of neat little tricks and things.
Yeah. So yeah, I like it. No problem there. Number 12 though, DuckTales.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty damn high for frickin' DuckTales.
Very high.
I get there's a rabid fan base that absolutely loves the original DuckTales game.
Yeah.
It's probably the music.
Yeah.
Because there are remixes of that music everywhere in every like NES bit playlist you'll ever go to.
Yeah.
It's a fun game.
It's a shallow game.
It is very shallow. It's a very, pretty easy platformer.
It's an interesting game because it's not really a beat the game. It's a score attack kind of game. It's can you get enough money to get the good ending?
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Find all the gems in all the levels and all the secret stuff in all the levels.
Yeah, and the 2 secret treasures in addition to the 5 main treasures, and if you do all the tricks, and you get Launchpad to take you when your 5th digit of your score is 7, so you get the dropping the gems bonus level, and
Yeah.
There's a lot of neat things. There's some replay value, which is good because it's a short as hell game.
Yeah, listen, I don't think it's not good. I don't know if it's top 12 good.
No.
There's other games on this list that I would say needs to be in that position. They don't make it.
It's probably the best Disney NES game.
Debatable. I mean,
probably.
What else would there be?
Then there's some other good ones like Little Mermaid and
right, but that's good. That's like a good 3-star game.
Right,
like,
none of them are really amazing. I mean, this is probably the closest to an amazing game on the list, and it's debatable. I mean, it's props for doing a good licensed game. No, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. There's like DuckTales 2, for example, which I mean, almost nobody played because it's kind of expensive and
it was a late
hard to find.
Game, I think too.
I think so. I don't know.
Honestly, to me, the biggest thing for DuckTales is its inspiration for Shovel Knight, which I do enjoy, so that's fair.
See, here's my story about DuckTales. So I rented it once as a kid. Huge DuckTales fan as a kid, as most people were.
Sure.
But it didn't come with the manual.
Oh.
So I didn't know that the pogo jump existed in the game. Ooh. So I couldn't get past like almost the starting area of any level. I thought the game was like broken.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
At all.
Because it's frustrating because you can't just jump on things unless you pogo.
Yeah.
And it's weird because you were trained at that time to, I'm Mario, I jump on top of most enemies. This game, and you can't just walk up and swing your pogo stick. Nope. Or your cane, you can only swing at things if it's stationary. So for most enemies, the way to beat it is you have to jump on it and hit the B button just before you land on it, or already be pogoing, which is a weird. It's weird to get used to if you're used to other games,
especially with some of the harder jumps in some of the levels. Like it is an interesting concept, but like I didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
so I'm like, okay, I have to hit the blocks into the enemies and then they die. Great, but like that only works for like 2 minutes.
Yes,
and then it becomes you need to pogo, and I just didn't have the manual.
The cane swing almost seemed like an afterthought. Like it's used for puzzles, but it's barely used for killing enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, number 2, way too high for me.
Way too high.
It's a good game. I don't have a problem with it. It should not be number 12.
Yeah.
Number 13, Mario 2. Mario 2 has never been my favorite Mario. It's always been my third favorite, but I mean, it's a great game for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it belongs lower than 1 and 3 for sure. It could maybe go lower, but it's still a really good game.
Yeah, if somebody wanted to argue me that it should be a top 15 game, I can't honestly say that I have a counter argument against it, other than maybe there's just a better game that should be in there.
I mean, people lost their minds about it back in the day.
Right.
You had that whole Mario Mania thing when Mario 2 and Zelda 2 couldn't be found because they had the chip shortage, right? And it was a thing. And one of the rare cases where they didn't want to bring over a Japanese version of a game, the actual Mario 2, and that was probably a good idea because
it would have turned a lot of people off to the franchise. It's
Yeah.
just too damn hard for back then.
Yeah, pretty rare case when they did a swap like that. I mean, most cases when they did a swap like that, it was like Final Fantasy 3 for the NES getting left out. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, and randomly the Yonoid game.
Yeah, stuff like that. And yes, most of them were like Yonoid, where it was like, whatever, this could have been a Ninja game. Who knows if it would have been done any better or worse. But in the case of Mario 2, you could argue it did better to pick this other game and rebrand it.
And put in the Mario enemies that are still kind of seen today. So,
Yeah,
no problems with that. 14, though, I do have a problem with.
Yeah.
The original Ninja Gaiden in the top 15 of the top NES games of all time.
Yeah.
I would say no. I don't even like the first one out of like the original 3.
Well, I will say I like the aesthetic. I like the running around and cutting enemies down and stuff. Like level 1 or the first few levels are fun. And then
I would say like the first 4 levels actually are pretty fun, and then it gets kind of jank. So like it just, I don't know. It's like a janky program game where the enemies just constantly respawn if you're even close to the edge of the screen where they do spawn.
Yeah,
which leads to a lot of just increasingly difficult platforming areas. Where it's just like asshole design.
Yeah.
And I don't like that much asshole design in my games nowadays.
Yeah.
I like stuff that's clever. Like that's why I like Batman, which we'll talk about soon. Where it's just a little bit better done. It's not as janky. Even like the other Ninja Gaidens aren't as bad.
Yeah, and I mean the graphics and sound are good on all of them.
They get better as they go along though.
Yeah, and the cutscenes are fun and the power-ups get better.
Yeah.
And then you like the end of the game, the jankiness where you get to the boss and lose.
I hate the end boss fight in this game.
And then don't you continue and then you go all the way back to
6-1.
6-1, yeah, which is the jankiest of jank moves.
Yeah, and like once you're really good at the game, 6-1 isn't that bad. 6-2 is not that bad. Even like 6, you can make it through that.
Yeah,
if you know like where to get the power ups that you need, like the slash attack.
If you trained your thumbs.
If you trained your thumbs against a fan, you're pretty good. But I hate the second form of the boss. I have never been able to figure out how to kill that stupid thing without the spin attack.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always kill the first form, die, go back, get the spin attack, kill the second form, and then the third form is kind of a joke, so it's no big deal. But as far as Ninja Gaiden goes, I'll put it this way: the controls are good. The sound is actually great.
Yeah.
I love the music of that game.
Yeah.
A lot of asshole designs, and honestly, like 2 and 3, you could argue are just better versions of the original Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah.
3 has the asshole design of not having unlimited continues, which kind of sucks.
Right.
But it's a fantastic game for what it is.
I think the Japanese version does have unlimited continues.
Yeah, it's one of those like weird American things where we rented games and they hated it, so they just put in harder shit just to piss us off. So.
Yep.
Yeah, that is 14. I think that's like one of those weird nostalgia picks.
Yes.
Where, hey, Ninja Gaiden, I know that game. Like,
everyone had.
Yeah, everyone has it. Man, we really loved it. But if you went back and played it today and then played Ninja Gaiden 2 and 3, I think you would find that it's arguably worse than either one of them and probably not a top 15er.
Yeah, I mean, you could debate Ninja Gaiden 2 maybe needing to be pretty high on this list, which is weird where it ended up on this list.
I'm going to say, is it even on this list?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Eventually. Number 15, though, we have Tetris. I love Tetris.
I love Tetris.
Everyone, who the hell doesn't like Tetris? The sound will live in your head rent free for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you have a good game when the debate is which Tetris on the NES is actually better.
The Tengen or the original, and you could just debate the original looks a little cooler and it sounds a little bit better.
Yes. And it's got the neat endings, you know.
Sure, if you even get that
If
far.
you, yeah.
But the 10-gen has 2-player.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, which one do you want? Well, the original is like $10 or less. So there you go.
Well, and you could also say the most impactful one is actually the Game Boy version.
Oh yeah, dude. God damn, I love the Game Boy version.
Yes.
Just, what a perfect little game.
Yeah.
Just perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. It's Tetris.
It's great. It definitely belongs high on this list. 15's probably not bad. It could even maybe go a little higher for considering how few puzzle games are on the NES.
Right, like you could easily put it in the place of DuckTales or Ninja Gaiden, and like,
yeah,
it should probably be there.
Yeah.
Number 16 though, River City Ransom.
Yeah.
Now I love River City Ransom. It's a very in-depth beat 'em up, which you never got back in the day. Hell, you barely even get nowadays.
Yeah, some RPG elements. Kind of.
Yeah, RPG. You can buy food that like boosts your stats. You can buy secret moves so your character does cooler stuff instead of just like the point system like Double Dragon had.
Yes.
So it's a very in-depth game. It is 2-player.
Yeah,
it plays great. It's fun as hell. 16 might be a little high. But
I think it deserves to be higher than the Double Dragon games, probably.
Well, yeah. I would put it in front of Double Dragon. It is the superior game out of them. But like not having a Crystallis or like even like a Guardian Legend or something above it just feels kind of weird to me. Or like a Dragon Warrior 4.
I will say there aren't maybe that many great NES brawlers, and so the fact that it's the arguably the best NES brawler is important.
Yeah, I can think of what are the good ones. Double Dragon 1's okay.
Double Dragon 2 is really good.
Great.
Mighty Final Fight is good.
Good, but not great.
Yeah.
And then River City Ransom, which is great.
Yeah, there's a few. There's a
lot of shitty ones.
Yeah, there's not really a lot of good ones. There's not really a lot of Streets of Rage caliber stuff on.
Yeah, you get into like your Adventure Bayou Billy, Bad Street Brawlers, like just kind of just junk games. But, yeah, I don't know. 16 might be high, but whatever.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue too much.
17 is Castlevania 3, which we've been over. I mean, it could be easily top 5.
Yeah, I would maybe swap this in one, but that's debatable.
Yeah, I would say, sure. I mean, whatever.
And again, we didn't mention this before, but the Famicom version actually has even better music.
Yeah. If you can hunt down a Famicom and have the expanded audio, I mean.
Or you have one of the modern consoles that lets you play expanded
audio. I think
audio.
the NT does, doesn't it?
I believe it does, yeah.
I got to try that out someday. I never have. Yeah. Sure, Castlevania 3, no problems. 18, Kirby's Adventure. I love Kirby. I mean,
I like Kirby games. This particular Kirby game is maybe the most boring of them for me.
Sure, but back then,
yeah,
like I remember playing this when it came out, and it is a late. I think was the Super Nintendo already out at this time?
I think it might have been. Yeah,
sure. So you could like argue something. I don't know. Like I loved this game as a kid, and like if I pick it up and play it right now, I still enjoy the hell out of it.
Yeah, it's
the most aesthetically probably pleasing game in the entire library.
It's a chill, fun game.
Yeah, nothing looks like it at all. You could argue maybe Mr. Gimmick kind of sort of looks like it, but that's not even. It didn't even come out here. So
it's kind of almost a fantasy zone, pastel feel kind of thing.
Yeah, super cute. I love the music and the gameplay is. Yeah, I mean, dude, you can just sit back on your couch and just play this game and beat it in a day.
And it obviously had a huge impact on the industry. I mean, Kirby wasn't that popular back then. He only grew in popularity over the years.
Yeah, excellent Game Boy titles.
Yeah,
excellent Super Nintendo titles, and not so great 64 titles. But I mean, they still make Kirby games today, and kids still love them. I know I have a nephew, dude. He's all about Kirby still. So yeah. I don't know. At number 18, I don't mind it at all. But you could argue higher or lower just depending on your history with it.
I might call this particular game a little overrated, but it's fine.
I don't know. I'll fight you about it.
Yeah.
We'll move on.
Yeah.
19, Batman.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Batman.
It's a great game.
It looks incredible. The music track or the soundtrack for this game has to be like in the top 10 on NES, just in general. The gameplay, it has the best wall jumping mechanics you probably ever play for any game.
Which is not a common thing. I think Strider had it and it was okay there, but it was a little better in Batman, I think.
Yeah. And they bring it back a lot in like the 3D platforming eras. And it just never hits the same heights as just the original Batman. It has excellent cutscenes. It follows the movie. I mean,
This is, yeah, like I think you mentioned before, this is almost, gameplay is almost a little more what you should have gotten from Ninja Gaiden almost in some places. Like Ninja Gaiden had a little bit of wall jumpy thing, but it didn't work as well again as in this.
Well, the Ninja Gaiden games, once you get to like 3, the wall jumping is actually great.
Sure, but I was talking about 1. But
the wall jumping is kind of janky because you can't climb when you hit a wall, so it kind of pisses you off a little bit.
Right.
Batman, it plays a lot slower than the original Ninja Gaiden, but it doesn't have the asshole designs as Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah.
It's still an NES hard game. I mean, beating it is tough. The Joker is a hard fight. The last level is hard as hell.
Yeah, it's weird because it's hard, but it's also short.
Right. Yeah, you can beat it. Once you're good at it, it's a half-hour game.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a little frustrating in some ways. Yeah, when you hit that wall near the end with the Joker and so forth.
But at least it's unlimited continues, and you will figure out how to beat it. And it's one of those games, the more you play it, the better you get at it. So
yeah. I think it's probably at a good place. I don't know if I would put it much higher, maybe, but...
Well, I would swap it if you... The problem is with number 12 and 14, DuckTales and Ninja Gaiden are just so out of place that I just have a hard time. Like, Batman should not probably... You could argue with DuckTales, I guess, because some people just love DuckTales.
Right.
But I would say Batman's better than Ninja Gaiden. So
yes, I would swap the two easily.
Either they could swap or you'd move them around a little bit, but I don't know.
Yep.
Number 20, though, Blaster Master, I would say is probably way too high.
Way too high.
It's a fun game, but
it's weird because the more I play it, it's got that neat Sunsoft feel to it. They're a similar sound to a lot of their other games. Similar, the boss battles are kind of like straight up the same thing as Fester's Quest, really, which I think they reused what they did here for some of their later games. And so the feel is very familiar. This may be the best Sunsoft game, maybe in a lot of ways.
Well, Batman's a Sunsoft game.
Well, I mean the best game of this type. Batman was kind of its own little thing they did, but a lot of their later games, it seemed like they were trying to recapture what they did with Blaster Master and not as well.
Yeah.
Like I said, Fester's Quest is the one that jumps most to mind to me. So it's a very complete game in a lot of ways. It's got a lot of neat tricks. There's a lot of weapons, a lot of power-ups, it's kind of an early Metroidvania in some ways because you're going back and forth, but I don't know, a lot of jank is the problem.
I would say it's very hard to gain and lose your power-ups.
Yeah.
Or very easy to gain and lose your power-ups, which get frustrating at certain points of the game. Yeah. You don't have like a lot of invincibility frames when you get hit with stuff, so it's I would be put in bad spots and just get railed in that game.
Yeah, I wish instead of gaining and losing your gun power-ups every time you get hit and having to recollect the gun, I wish you would just gain gun power-ups more slowly throughout the game.
Yeah.
And keep them.
Some of the enemies, like on the overworld, when you're in your ship, it just moves so damn fast, it's hard to react to them.
I will say it is neat being able to have a platformer with a ship. It's kind of a neat concept.
Yeah, I
do like the Sophia. It's a kind of a neat little tank,
It is definitely a game where you want to like make a map when you're playing it, or use a map from a guide or online, because it can be pretty punishing if you go the wrong direction and just get railed by enemies when it's not a place you should be at.
Yeah, and there's like a ton of levels that serve no purpose except building up your gun again. And you can waste, and it's already a long game that you have to beat all in one sitting.
Yeah, and is it like 3 continues? Is that all you get? I don't think it's unlimited, is it?
I don't think it is. I forget. I've just been playing it through, but so this is one of those games that I don't like save scum it, but I will use save states like in between levels or before bosses.
You kind of have to because it's long as hell. Yeah, there's like 8 levels and it takes 20-30 minutes to beat each one. So.
I'm sure once you get good enough, it's not a thing. And if you get the good gun and keep it, it helps quite a bit. And then you're just cautious. You can shoot things through walls, and that helps, so you don't end up getting accidentally tagged. But that's so tedious, it's less fun. I would just as soon just play that boss over and over until I get it figured out, rather than having to replay the whole game to get back to the boss and then die and or lose your gun power up. And that's just idiotic. I hate that.
Yeah. So I would say at 20, like Blaster Master, very good. Probably not in my top 20 though. Yeah. I mean, it isn't in my top 20.
But yeah. It could go a bit lower, yeah.
Sure. Maybe like definitely maybe not definitely in my top 40, but somewhere right around there.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Number 21, I'd say, is kind of a crime.
Yes.
One of our first ones. Chrysalis, which I consider the perfect bridge game versus the original Zelda to Link in the Past.
Exactly.
It's like that perfect middle game.
Yeah, this is almost a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah, it's
on the
right
NES.
up there. Looks great, sounds great, plays great.
Yeah, it's got an amazing story. It's got tons of power ups, tons of weapons and armor. I had the manual for it. I owned it back then. I had the manual, and it just has this great artwork and this big list. Oh, these are. It's like with you. You got those cool manuals of Dragon Quest.
Yep. That show you the armor power ups,
Yeah.
like the shops, and which characters these armors and stuff go to, which isn't a problem with Crystal is,
but before you even play the game, I'm like piecing through the book. Oh, I want to get this, and I
Right.
can't wait till I see that. It's just so good.
It was like I kind of learned to read by reading the original Legend of Zelda manual.
Yeah.
Like just what was I like? Well, I was young as hell when that game came out, but when I was playing it, I was probably like 5 or 6. So yeah, learning to read by reading a manual was kind of what you did. But.
Yeah, and this game just has amazing graphics, amazing sound. There's maybe a little bit of flash in there, because the NES was barely able to handle this game in places.
Yeah. The graphics do kind of trip out sometimes.
But you have these huge bosses. You have the huge bug. It looks like from Princess Mononoke or something, and just the end boss Dragon is this huge guy that fills up the whole screen. And you're doing like lightning effects that hit the whole screen and sometimes glitch out a little bit. It's overall it's a near perfect game. It's a game I can just play over and over again. The way they remade it on the Game Boy Color, it was the Game Boy Color, I think, was a kind of a crime because they ruined the audio. They put in a totally different set of music and it was worse.
I don't have that one. I've been meaning to try to play it, but I do have an analog. I gotta just throw it on the pocket, I guess, and play it. But yeah, no, Chrysalis is amazing. If you haven't played it, it's probably because the box art is garbage.
Yeah.
It's just this little dorky looking guy in like a pink tunic.
Yeah, whereas in Japan it's like Legend of God Slayer. It's like
it looks awesome.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, so I mean,
but SNK of all people coming up with this amazing action RPG out of nowhere. It's not like they had the chops for these kind of games prior to that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did it?
If you haven't played Chrysalis, play Chrysalis. Ignore the box art because it sucks, but play it.
Yep.
Number 22 though, we have Mega Man 3, which I mean, whatever to me. It's good. It's very good.
It's right up there with 2.
Yeah.
More fun in some ways, maybe less polished in a couple ways, but still a great game.
Yeah.
Still good music. Plays well.
I don't mind it being there. You could easily place it higher and maybe place it a few spots lower, depending on what your personal preferences are, but
it's a Mega Man's.
Again, Ninja Gaiden is 14, which any one of these games you could easily put Ninja Gaiden's place. I'm still not at my Ninja Gaiden spot yet.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is, but I'll tell you once I get there.
Yeah.
Number 23 though, we have Double Dragon 2.
It could maybe be higher on the list, but still under River City Ransom, I think.
Yeah, it could be higher or lower depending on just what other games we're talking about are. As for beat 'em ups, it's the one everyone had. It's the one everyone played.
Yeah.
2-player. The only thing is it kind of has your standard janky Double Dragon platforming elements.
Yes, those suck.
Don't fucking work ever. I was just playing it the other day and it's such a pain in the ass.
I will say the platforming is a little less janky than 1, maybe. But it still sucks when you're like interrupting my cool beat 'em up to do shitty platforming that doesn't work well.
But as a beat 'em up, it's so much fun.
Yeah, the 2-player action's great. The moves, you don't have to earn the moves, which is kind of nice in this version at least, and just fun stuff like where you have that knee drop, or if you jump when you're crouching just after the jump, if you hit the attack at just the right time, you do a knee or an uppercut, and you can launch people off of platforms to their doom. It's just the funnest thing ever.
Yep, it's got the jumping like roundhouse kick, which is pretty good.
Yeah, the spinning kick.
Did this one have the 2-player versus mode too? Or was that a different one?
No, that was the first one. Because the first one, the only 2-player mode it had was the versus mode. Okay. Whereas this one had 2-player mode. I think I'd have to double check. I believe it had a 2-player mode where you can hit each other and one where you can't.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I would never play it where you could hit each other.
No.
You're going to die of platforming elements.
No, but it's a fun game. The enemies, it has the usual problem where I think you're fighting like, the same enemy.
Two enemies at a time
and stuff. But for the limitations of the NES, it did a pretty good job. It's the console could only do so much without ridiculous mappers. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, no problems with it. Like I said, lower or higher, whatever, doesn't matter. Number 24 though, I'm not sold on. So they have Bionic Commando.
Yeah, I mean it's a good game, but it's kind of a gimmicky game.
I can't get into it. It is not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
The lack of a jump button, I understand. You have the grappling gun.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're playing Spider-Man elements, but there's so many gotchas in each level where if you don't know where enemies are placed or where you should be going, it can be a giant pain in the ass to navigate around.
Yeah, it's you got to know that you have to do some grinding. You potentially have to do a lot of grinding. There was even a thing in Nintendo Power about how to grind in Bionic Commando effectively, where you drop the enemies drop these little bullets and you get them and you level up and you can grab them with your Bionic hand, which is neat. But it's a port, but it's another one of those weird ports where they couldn't really port Bionic Commando from the arcade as is because the console wouldn't handle it. So they made it an entirely different kind of game, and they pulled it off. But it's not quite a run and gun, or it's a run and gun without your usual jumping. So
with more weird platforming elements.
Yeah, it slows it way down. You have to you do get a variety of guns, which is neat. I do like that. And you choose your route between levels, and you have the helicopters that you come across, and then you have to do these little skirmishes, which is neat. It's got interesting elements, but again, I'm not even sure it belongs in the top 40 list. If so, it should be lower.
I think that's a game that a lot of people had growing up.
Yeah.
It was pretty popular, and I think a lot of people just have that kind of nostalgia grab to it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a good game, maybe not a great game.
Yeah. I don't even have it in my... I don't know how big that stack is. It's probably 60 deep, maybe even higher, but I don't even have it in my top 60, so I don't know. Number 25, I have a giant problem with.
Yeah.
It's the TMNT 2 arcade game.
Yes.
What I will say, one of my favorite arcade games of all time.
Yes.
Fucking love it. I played it a ton as a kid.
Yeah.
The roller drum, every arcade really had it. I've wasted dozens of dollars on it.
Yeah.
As an NES game, it is jank.
Yeah,
it's okay, but it's kind of janky.
I'm not sure they could have done any better on the NES.
It looks good for what it is.
Yeah.
It plays good for what it is.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue 3 plays a little better. It has a similar style.
Say 3 does.
3 plays. Yeah. So yeah, I guess they could have gone a little better, but not much. They could have gone as better as 3, but with the same levels. But the problem is they kept the levels more or less the same and added more. So it's really long and monotonous.
Very repetitive. The whole game is basically you just trying to jump kick your way through the levels.
Yes.
Just to conserve life so you can actually try to beat the game.
Which the arcade kind of was too, but the arcade at least there was more window dressing, right? It was more...
It looked better. I mean, the fire effects, for example, just look fantastic in the arcade game, but yeah,
it's you can always do the beat and go up close and hit them, but you got to get good at doing the jump attack tap the right way, so you do not the jump kick but the powerful jumping attack that knocks them out in one hit. So you get good at doing that, and you're just it's even more repetitive because you're just repeating that same move over and over and over again.
I have like a modded arcade 1-up out there.
Yeah.
And during a really boring like all-employee meeting one day, I just played through the TMNT arcade game.
Yeah.
Man, I love that game. And then you play the NES, not so much. Although as a kid, I loved it. Okay.
Yeah.
As an adult, I would rather play TMNT 3, although even that gets super repetitive.
Yeah.
But at least 3 feels kind of like Turtles in Time.
Yeah.
Just an NES version, so slightly jankier.
Yeah. And even 1, people give Turtles 1 shit.
Oh, I love Turtles 1.
But
I would not put it in my top 30, but I love Turtles 1.
Yeah. And I love Turtles 1 better than 2.
I would play Turtles 1 over 2 any day.
Any day of the week. Any day of the week, yeah.
It's a completely different style of game. Yeah. But if you want a Turtles game, 1 is hard as balls.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Nintendo hard. The dam is not hard, by the way, so people need to get that out of their brain. But the dam's like the easiest part of that game.
I figured that out easily when I was a kid.
Right. Like I got through it taking like no damage as a kid. As a 6-year-old.
Getting to stage 4 isn't a problem. That's when it starts getting hard.
Yeah. The Technodrome. Jesus Christ, is that hard.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
Yeah. For number 25, no.
No.
I don't. It would probably be my top 50.
Yeah.
But not my top 20 or 25, whatever it is.
I mean, again, it's a shallow bank of brawlers that are any good on the NES, and this is one of the better ones, but that's not saying much.
Yeah, it's one of the better than average ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number 26, we have Kid Icarus. I know a lot of people love Kid Icarus. I am not a fan of this game.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, tell me about this game, Dave, because I cannot get into Kid Icarus.
This is where I was saying before. This is the sister game to Metroid. Personally, I might swap them in the list.
Okay.
As high as Metroid is on the list, and as much as I love Metroid, I actually love Kid Icarus better, flawed though it may be. It's got some big issues, especially right away in level 1, where you duck down and you can fall through platforms and you can easily fall off the stage and die, which is really frustrating to have happen right away in stage 1. Even that said, this is a game that I rented over and over and over again when I was a kid, and beat, and still rented and beat, and because you can play it different ways. You can, if you go out of your way to kill every single enemy and rack up the high score, you get those arrows that increase your damage early in the game. Otherwise you have to wait to get them later. And then there's different items you can get. There's the wine or whatever that you get, that you either drink it right there, or you can get bottles of it that you save in your inventory, so when you die you immediately refill some of your health. And then you can get a barrel so you can carry more of them, and you can carry wing feathers, so if you fall off the stage you float back up. And there's just so much to it. It's a lot like Metroid in a lot of ways, but a little more, less Metroidvania, more just directed. You go from one stage to the other and you can't go back.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just love it. To me, it's just super nostalgic. I love it's not amazing graphics and sound because it's a super early game, but
it's that the graphics aren't very good at all, but like the sound is catchy. I mean,
it's another song that lives in my brain, and I'll just play it. I think the early stages, especially the later stages when you're going overworld, which are less hard, they're less of a pain in the butt, but they're less nostalgic somehow. And you have these mazy palaces, these fortresses at the end with interesting bosses. It's just and the little statues, you hit the little statues with hammers, and then when you fight the bosses, these little flying centurion guys come and help you out. It's just a neat game. I really like it.
Okay. All
but
right.
I admit it's not a perfect game. I would probably put it on the top 40 list. I don't know if I would actually put it as high as they put Metroid, but I might. I would put it higher than Metroid, I think.
I'll take your word for it. Metroid, this is an absolute weird one to put at 4. But whatever.
I just love Kid. I think it's a shame they haven't done more with Pit, with that character, but I mean they've tried.
They've barely done jack shit. They had like the
Yeah.
DS game, and it skipped generation 2 and 3.
I think there was a Super Nintendo port that was maybe being worked on, and it just got dropped or something.
Yeah, it's one of those weird ones. They just kind of got rid of it.
Yeah.
Oh
well, Kid Icarus, it's cool. Try it if you haven't.
27, in my opinion, is a awful pick. The original RC Pro-Am for the top 27 games of all time for NES.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the best racers on the NES, I mean, you have the RC Pro-Am, Indie Heat, Sprint, Super Off-Road style.
Galaxy 5000.
Yeah,
Super Off-Road I like better than the original RC Pro-Am.
I don't know. I kind of like RC Pro-Am better in some ways, but maybe that's almost purely nostalgia. I mean, that rare music, the
music is catchy as hell.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love, but okay, hear me out. RC Pro-Am 2.
Yeah, RC Pro-Am 2 is better.
It's got almost identical music.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the exact same track, just tweaked.
Yeah.
It's got the Ivan, whatever the hell's Super Off-Road elements where you can power up your car in between races.
Well, I mean, one had it too, but you had to collect them on the...
Yeah, this one you actually like earn money to buy upgrades for your car.
Which is probably better.
It's a 4-player game.
Yeah.
And it's a much faster game too, as far as like the actual races go.
Yeah.
And it's got jumps. I mean, they just added so much stuff to RC Pro-Am 2 that it's hard for me to go back and play 1 and give it 2 craps about it.
I do think, you need to have a RC Pro-Am or Off-Road or, one of those, Galaxy Racer, one of those.
In your top 30 though?
Probably. I would personally put that style of racer over like Rad Racer.
I don't like the Rad Racer Outrun style personally, but...
Yeah. So, I mean, if you were going to put a racer game on this list, and you probably should, I would maybe put an RC Pro-Am, but again, I would probably put 2. Or, like I said, there's a couple others that you could swap in.
I mean, 2 is just like a better game, but hardly anyone played it.
Right. Well, that's the problem. That's why this is a popularity list, because everyone had RC Pro-Am.
So right. Yeah. It's
makes
still
sense
like a $6 game. I mean, it's still dirt cheap.
But again, if this is on your list, your personal list, play 2 and come back and tell me.
Yeah, and I try to argue that 1 is better. It's just not going to happen. Again,
it's still a fun game. I will still sit down and play this game any day of the week and enjoy myself. But
sure. 28's one that I was basically voting for every single day.
Yeah.
The Guardian Legend. It's one of those games again with bad box art, so I'm not sure if a lot of people bothered picking it up.
And great box art in Japan again. You have a cool robot lady, with like cyborg enhancements and wings and all that, who turns into a ship.
Which is exactly what happens in the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, this game, I mean, what would you say it is? It's kind of like a mix between Gun Knack, kind of like Zelda 1, and something else.
It's got Zelda 1
so much
Zelda
stuff.
1 elements, Gun Knack, Life Force type elements. It's got the bosses are almost a little more like Life Force in some ways.
And the bosses look awesome.
Yeah, it's got these ginormous bosses. The stages themselves get almost a little bullet hellish at places.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And there's even a mode where you can do just shooter only mode, but I think it's more fun to do you do one stage and the other. You do Zelda stage and shooter stage. Zelda shoots, and well, it's not quite the same because the Zelda stages are the hub worlds, and then you go through those corridors to get power ups and other things and to progress. But yeah, it's a great game. It's got so many elements. There's so many, you can choose different weapons to use, and you upgrade the different. I believe you put you put chips into there's like different stages of each weapon, I believe.
Well, yeah, you can earn like weapon and armor bonuses throughout the world stage.
It's like every time you buy a weapon, it gets better, I believe. Because
there's some upgrade components to the weapons. I haven't played through it in a while. I just played it a little bit the other day, and I just got through Corridor 1 again. Yeah. But just to record some gameplay for it.
But again, the replay value. Pick a different weapon the next time and fully upgrade it and try it out and see what you think. Because some of them start out terrible but get amazing later on.
Yeah. And
some of them are absolute garbage all around. And I don't think you can get all the weapons fully upgraded. Or maybe you can.
Maybe you can. I didn't the last time I played through it. I got most of them.
Yeah.
I was missing like one of the offensive upgrades too, and I don't know where it was.
I believe because there's some places where I think you can go back into the shop over and over, and then there's some other ones where I think you have to pick one.
Yeah.
I believe. It's been a bit.
So yeah, excellent game. If you haven't played the Guardian Legend, play through it. It there's a little bit of a learning curve. There's some cryptic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where like you'll read like a piece of text that says something like in Corridor 4, just sit there for like 20 seconds.
And then it opens. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Weird little things here, and it's all important and it all matters. So play through the Guardian Legend and then tell me it doesn't deserve, a top high
10.
spot.
Top 10, I think.
It could be top 10. I wouldn't argue against it.
Being able to pull off two genres, both of them well.
It could be, I would say it's in my top 15. Again, DuckTales or Ninja Gaiden wouldn't be in there. Yeah. And honestly, probably Super Mario 2 wouldn't either, or Final Fantasy, but whatever.
Yeah.
Definitely not Metroid. Number 29, though. Rygar?
Yeah, I just beat it again yesterday.
Okay, tell me your thoughts about Rygar, because I think it's just a generic platformer. I don't know.
To be honest, I was more familiar with the arcade game. I'm trying to remember if I ever had actually beaten it back in the day. Maybe I never did, but I did recently. And it's an average NES game. It's an interesting variant of the arcade game. It might even be better than the arcade game in some ways because it's longer and more interesting and has more RPG-ish elements. But at the same time, you're still doing the whole thing through the whole game. You're running around, jumping on enemies, hitting them with your disc armor. You're getting some items that let you traverse the world better, grappling hooks and stuff.
Sure.
But you're not really getting new moves. You're not really getting anything new and interesting, and it's not very long. And the bosses are all pretty janky and repetitive, and it's a good game, but it's a pretty average game. I don't think it's a top 40 game. I think a lot of people had it, and I feel like it's a precursor to games like Clash of Demon Head or Battle of Olympus that are slightly better.
Yeah.
And so I think it's somewhat important for that. Like I said, it's kind of an early Metroidvania, but really primitive.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played it enough, I guess, to have like a dead set opinion about it, but like when I did play it, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I will say there's a couple weird things, like when you die, you're taken back to a screen where it says start, and if you hit enter, you continue. It's not letting you know ahead of time that you're going to continue, so you might turn off the game and not realize you can keep going, and you start back with like three life pips or whatever, but you have like all your upgrades still, so it's that would be helpful, and some kind of save or continue would be nice, but whatever, or some kind of save or obvious continue, I should say.
Yeah, I'll just put it this way: the top 40 games look awesome, and Rygar being the top 30 is kind of like a slap in the face of some of them, in my
Yeah.
in my opinion.
But. Yeah, I should say graphics and sound are distinctly average on this game, too.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I wouldn't say it does anything incredibly well. I think people just like, I don't know, Zelda 2 style, just, I don't know, whatever.
It's too average for this list.
Yeah. Number 30, Battletoads, which, I mean, if there's not a popularity contest, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So
do you have Battletoads at this
right?
GameStop?
I mean, it's more of a meme than it is a good
meme.
NES game.
Yes.
It does some things incredibly well, right? It looks pretty cool for NES. It has a lot of cool effects that you don't normally see.
It might be one of the best versions of Battletoads.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
They've kind of screwed it up on some of the other consoles.
It's one of those like jack of all trades, but like masters of absolutely nothing.
Yes.
Every stage is a completely different level design than the previous stage.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first stage, you think the game is going to be like a fun beat 'em up.
Yep.
Which the Battletoads and Double Dragon is.
Yeah.
But the original Battletoads, that's just the one stage beat 'em up. Everything else is either like an on rails platformer, puzzle type of deal, like the snake stage, for example.
Yep.
One of those, I don't even know what to call the rat stage.
Yeah, there's a bunch of racing stages, some of which are you're outrunning something, you're trying to get somewhere before the thing kills you, or to get there before the rat, or or you're trying to dodge things that are going to hit you. And yeah, there's a bunch of variety. Or you're on the ship and you're trying to not crunch into things.
Yeah, I mean it's like, it's fun to me.
It is.
It's one of those games, like, every kid rented the hell out of this game as a kid, right?
Yeah.
I rented it several times. I probably never got past the turbo tunnel as a child.
Yeah.
But I still liked the game, and I still liked Battletoads as a thing.
Yeah.
But once Battletoads and Double Dragon came out, I just like that more, because you just get the fun, like, arcade-style beat-em-up that, in my opinion, Battletoads should have been the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, this game was more infamous than good. It was one of those games like Bayou Billy that was its infamy way outstretched its gameplay.
Right.
And this game is better than Bayou Billy.
Oh, for sure.
Would say.
Yeah.
Again, the first few stages are great. And if you could continue, if you had unlimited continues, I would even say the difficulty would be fine, because you'd call it like a Ghouls or Ghosts and Goblins style beat your head against the wall till you figure it out game. Although a password would be better, but whatever.
Yeah, the not having unlimited continues, it's NES hard for sure. It's probably the NES hard game, other than, like, I don't know, Ninja Gaiden 3. I don't even know what you'd pick. And
it's only marginally a 2-player game because of how badly the 2-player.
Oh yeah, it's like broken in 2-player. I wouldn't even bother.
You should be able to steal lives, if your partner dies, or anything but restarting the whole stage with.
So yeah, if you play a 2-player, both of you have to be like experts at the game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to die at the turbo tunnel and probably never continue again.
Yeah, and it's that whole thing with a racing game where you're like rubber banding people back and forth. There's a reason racing games are hard to do with multiple people. So this game where you're doing these racing stages where there is no room for error.
Like I said, you both have to be like great at the game.
Yeah.
Which doesn't work.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's a good idea. It doesn't work.
Yeah, this is an example of a multi-genre game done poorly. Guardian Legends is great. This game is done poorly.
Yeah. Like Vice Project Doom we were talking about earlier off cam, like, Vice Project Doom does 2 different genres pretty well.
Yeah.
Not perfect for either one of them, but I would say pretty well.
Yeah.
Battletoads, no. It's too many genres.
Yep.
Number 31 though, we have Star Tropics. I mean,
it's a good game.
It's good. I think it would be in my top 50. I don't think it would be this high on the list, though, in my opinion, because the games that come right after it, I would say are above this game. But
yeah, I would probably keep it on this list, but I mean, I actually like this game quite a bit, despite its jankiness. Although this is another one of those games where you have to beat the whole thing in one sitting, and it gets near the end, you're just like, I need to practice this level more, but I can't. I'd have to restart the whole game again to get back here.
Is there not a continue in that? I thought there was.
But there's not I believe there's a continue, but there's not a password or anything like that.
Okay, I thought it had like a Zelda style continue. It's been a long time since I played it.
Yeah,
like a battery save, doesn't it?
Does it?
I thought it did.
Maybe it does. Honestly, it's been so long since I played this game. What I do remember...
I know it does, because, last time we were playing it together, we got to, like, the last area.
You're right. I must be thinking of something else. No, I think what I'm thinking of is just getting to that last stage and trying to get good enough to keep all of your hearts so that you can keep your fully powered up state
impossibly hard.
like you get this really cool weapon. This you get your regular yo-yo, and then you get your spiked mace thing, and then you get this hypersonic, powered yo-yo thing that's really fun.
Yeah.
And then you get hit once and you lose it. Well, you might have a little bit of leeway, but not much.
It's once or twice at most. Yeah.
And it's being able to practice enough to get good at that is just a struggle.
For me, it's like some of the things in this game are a little too cryptic when you play it. It's there are certain points of the game where if you don't have a guide and you don't know what's happening, you're probably not going to continue.
Yeah.
There's the infamous password that the submarine password that's you only would know the password back in the day by reading Nintendo Power or by dunking a letter that came with the game inside some water where it give you the secret passcode.
Yeah.
Or by entering in 999 passcode combinations and getting it.
Yeah.
But as a rental, for example, you obviously didn't have that piece of paper. Right. You would have no idea that this, like, you would get stuck at that point and the game would be over.
Yeah.
There's also one of those dungeons, I think early on, where like the entrance of the dungeon has a secret entrance to the actual dungeon.
You mean the one with the little piano thing that you had to hit?
No, that's another one that confused the hell out of me. And I'm glad you were just with me and knew what to do. Yeah. But like that's another one. I thought there was a dungeon early on where the very entrance of it, you had to like jump left or right onto a platform and jump into the actual dungeon. Yeah. Because the original entrance is basically a dummy entrance.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, there's a lot of really cryptic stuff. It's kind of like a Goonies kind of thing where it's like you got to know the secret to play on the piano so the pirate's skull thing will open up and let you in. It's neat and it's got an interesting feel to it.
I love the music. I like the like aesthetic style of the game where everything's pretty bright and colorful, but there's some really cool looking bosses and dungeons. I am not a big fan of the controls.
Yeah, the controls are a little weird. I like how they give you all these different weapons, although it's kind of sad that you get to use some of them only a few times and then they're gone.
Oh, right. Like the bat and the stuff you use once and you use it once for a boss fight basically and then it's over.
It's interesting for variety, but I kind of wish you could almost save up some of them. Now that you're right. This was a game with a save thing, but it would have been nice if you had like an inventory thing so you could maybe choose when to use certain things. You're not really moving around so much as you are jumping from step to step in a lot of these levels.
It's kind of like if they mixed like the original Zelda with like Indiana Jones. Yeah, that's what it kind of feels like.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. It's just I probably wouldn't put it higher on the list, but
I would say it's at a certain points the controls are kind of like a detriment to the playing. Yeah, like especially in the last like kind of levels once you get into the alien spaceship. Yeah, there's just so much shit flying at you that the janky, very slow hoppy controls are just they don't work for me when it gets that far. Now I did beat the game, but yeah, like the last ship and then the last area of the ship with the end boss, it was just a grind. Yeah, just a grind of like you have to do it perfectly in order to actually beat the game. And it's a pain in the ass, but yeah, that's a good game. I don't know, it'd be a little bit lower in my rating though. Number 32 for me though, like Life Force. I love Life Force.
I love Life Force.
I'd say it's arguably the best shooter on the console.
I would say it's the best shooter, yeah. Some people might say Xanac, I think, but, I like Life Force better.
Yeah, that or... Yeah, I know a lot of people love, like, Gunnac and...
Oh, yeah, you're thinking Gunnac. Yeah, sorry. Neither one of the... I see both of those, I think, on lists all the time, and I've never played either one of them enough to have a strong opinion on them.
Gunnac's a lot of fun. Gunnac's, like, one of those... It's kind of plays like that Crisis Core game. Yeah. Where it looks like it's a little bit like above the system. Yeah. And it plays like that, but
I mean, both of them, most of those other shooters on the game, and maybe I'm acting like I'm talking like I don't know what I'm talking about here, but most of those games are just so samey. Whereas Life Force, you're playing Life Force.
Yeah, Life Force is badass. I love Life Force. The bosses in Life Force look so awesome.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. You have that Konami Gradius whatever upgrade system with all the different weapons. You could choose if you want to have the laser, the ripple if you want for some reason, or you could pick the laser like everybody does. And you have the missiles and the shields and
the multiple options
and you can play a 2-player well. Like
works great.
It actually works well 2-player, and both people have your 30 life code if you use the Konami code, and so you can try to do it legitimately with a regular amount of lives, or you can just do the Konami code and die a bunch, and oh well. And it's not quite as punishing as Gradius.
Oh, it's not as punishing at all like Gradius.
Because when you die, you're still going. Like even if both people die, you're still moving through the level. You pick a new life. You might even be able to grab your options back.
Yeah.
Yeah. which is crazy.
You can get through Life Force. Gradius, for me, I had to save scum the shit out of it. Because if you don't get to certain points with the power-ups that you need, like if you don't save them, you're kind of fucked at a lot of those reset points.
Yeah, Life Force, you can make it through with no power-ups, and you just keep going.
Yeah, and, I mean, it's hard. It's hard as balls. Like, you have to... It's one of those, like, asshole design type of games where things will spawn on the screen that you can't actually get past unless you know that they were there and get ahead of it beforehand.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's a short enough game where you can kind of figure it out the first
learn it.
Couple playthroughs.
And it just to do the, side scrolling and the top scrolling, vertical and horizontal scrolling in the same game well. It does both of them well. It's not, you don't have an overly large sprite that's bumping into things with your surfboard or, it does both versions really well. And just, it crosses the organic and the technical, in the different levels. And you got that Egyptian pyramid level. And it's just, they all look great.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game. If somehow you've never played Life Force, but you played Gradius, go play Life Force. It's fun.
Yeah. That's why I say, like, I always confuse all the other games people say are the best shooter on the NES, because none of them are Life Force.
Life Force, I would say, stands right above, and then it's kind of just personal preference from there.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I love Dragon Spirit, for example, but I understand if other people don't love it.
Yeah. But yeah, Life Force should be way, way higher on the list. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for
amazing music and sound, amazing graphics, amazing just about everything.
Life Force could easily be in the top 15, to be honest. It should probably be in the top 20.
Yeah.
What do we got here? Oh, number 33. We finally have a Dragon Warrior game sneak through, which is Now, here's the thing. Here's one of the voting trends I always saw.
Yeah.
Was there was a group that loved Dragon Warrior 3 and a group that loved Dragon Warrior 4. And they were constantly fighting for like 30-something picks on which one was better.
Yeah.
But they were good. But they were always like the second voted game out of any day.
Yeah.
So it lost to Life Force. It basically like there'd be like 40 votes for either one of them on any given day, and the winning thing would have like 45 votes. It was just a constant struggle.
They're both good games. They're just slightly different games. Dragon Warrior 3, you get to pick almost your whole party. You have a lot more flexibility on how you play it. You get to change class. You get to change people to a sage. You get to have like a fighter mage or whatever. Dragon Warrior 4, you have the specific people that you bring with, and you don't really have a choice. And they're computer controlled in the last stage when you have them all together.
Yeah, but each character has their own very in-depth story. Yeah. Even the main villain has a very in-depth story.
Yep.
And the main character, who you don't get for like 20-something hours into the game, has his own little great story. So like, I think it's kind of up to personal preference on which one you like. Yeah. At this point, I think we just agreed that one of these games should go in, because RC Pro-Am went in before a Dragon Warrior game. Let's just put it out there. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Rygar went in before a Dragon Warrior game.
And I realized the NES was in that era where RPGs hadn't really caught on yet, you could say.
Yeah.
And that's why they did that Dragon Warrior giveaway, because they were already pretty big over in Japan. I think they were struggling to make the genre take off over here. So I get it, but so a lot of people, it's a popularity contest. A lot of people didn't play 3 and 4 especially, but they're both just amazing games. Either one, you can't go wrong with either one. They both got little flaws. They both got little gotchas, but they're just amazing games.
And if you want to argue that Final Fantasy is better, whatever.
Whatever.
I'm not going to fight you on it, but like,
it's more popular. I'll grant it that, but
go play a Dragon Warrior 3 or 4.
Yeah. Final Fantasy, as far as how long of a game, and so it compares probably the closest with Dragon Warrior 2 in some ways.
Sure.
I think 3 and 4 are just far and away just more in-depth games.
What's funny is like 3 is the only one I haven't played through so far. Somehow I went 1, 4, and then to 2 or something. I don't know. I did a weird series there, but
and 3 especially, if you had the patience to play through 1 and 2, you have the extra value of 3 being tied in with those other games. So
so it's not like 4 that has its own sort of story going on.
No, it's the original, the Erdrick trilogy basically, and then the 4 on is kind of the Zenithian trilogy, kind of, sort of. They never really made it that. The first 3 are a definite trilogy. The later ones less so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 34, though, we have Chippendale's Rescue Rangers, which, I mean, like, it's a fine platformer. I have no issues with the game itself. I would say it's a solid 4-star, platformer.
Yeah. It's not a top 40 game.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's in the top 40. I mean, I think a lot of people just had it. A lot of people are obviously nostalgic for Chippendale.
Yeah.
It's a good 2-player game.
Yeah, it plays well with 2 players. The problem is it's a little longer than I remember, but it's still kind of repetitive. You're just picking up objects and throwing them at things and trying to avoid getting hit.
There's some cool level designs, but I mean, there's nothing. It doesn't change the formula at all in the game.
Yeah, sometimes you're hitting a light switch to turn off a hazard, or you're jumping on a water tap to turn off the water. Okay, it's like ridiculously easy for like 3/4 of the game, and then it starts getting actually fairly hard later on.
Well, the bosses barely do anything in Chippendale.
Yeah, except for the second to last boss, which is like a caterpillar that splits apart and just randomly throws.
It'd be hard to dodge it.
It's really hard to dodge that one if you're not used to it. I lost a ton of my lives to that specific boss because I was just snoozing through the rest of the game, and before I realized that I had wasted a bunch of lives on this stupid caterpillar boss. But the rest of the game is pretty much I would call it a kid's game, except that it gets too hard too fast for most kids, I think.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, funny enough, so like Barbie was a kid's game, but it's actually like an NES hard game.
Right. This is one of those that maybe it should have stayed as easy throughout as it was and just been marketed more to kids or whatever. I don't know. I don't think that the gameplay elements in this were ever going to attract the hardcore gamers, really, but I don't know.
No, and personally, like, I like Chippendale 2 better.
Yeah.
It looks better. It sounds a little bit better. I mean, it's what a sequel should be to Chippendales, and it has like a choose your own adventure type of thing. Like, it's a good game. I don't know. Top 40 might be too high for me though.
Yeah, it might be worse than Little Mermaid or Darkwing or one of the other Disney games. It's definitely worse than DuckTales 1 and 2, I think.
Sure. I mean,
yeah.
I would consider it better than The Little Mermaid, but
yeah, maybe
for those that haven't played The Little Mermaid, it's actually a really solid game. Like, go try it out.
Most of the Disney games are pretty solid, other than maybe Tailspin.
I like Tailspin.
I mean, it's all right, but it's not. It might be the weakest of them.
Maybe I think Tailspin gets a lot of bullshit.
Yeah,
but it's actually a fun, and it's like a $10-15 game. Like, go buy Tailspin.
But they're mostly like solid 3 to 4-ish games with
there's
variation.
nothing like lower than a 3.
No, they're and I don't know that any of them are really a 5 though either.
I mean, you could argue, I guess, DuckTales. I mean, just for the music alone, I think a lot of people would have it up there, but whatever.
Yeah.
Number 35, I have zero problems with though. Bubble Bobble. I love Bubble Bobble.
It's a great arcade port. Yeah.
I mean, if you like Bubble Bobble, great, it should be there. If you don't, then something's wrong with you. So
I mean, the only thing I would maybe say is it does get a little monotonous and difficult and frustrating.
Every arcade game kind of does, though.
Yeah, because it has like 99 plus levels plus all the extra stuff after you beat. And so if you want to actually get through, I mean, there's a lot of places where you can skip ahead, but if you want to go all the way through, I mean, fortunately, I believe it's unlimited continues.
I don't remember, but I think you're right.
I'm pretty positive it's unlimited, and I believe there's a password system of some sort too, because once you get through, there's like a new game plus kind of thing where everything's harder, and I think there's a code you can put in to just go straight to the new game plus.
Okay,
and it's one of those where the beating the boss at the end is hard. You got to do it the right way. You have to do it with both players, and you have to first go through in this one level and grab both items in the right way. So if you're playing one player, you have to have your one character ready to get the item, and then you have to hit the start on the second controller to have them walk up. It's really complicated to get the good ending if you're not playing with 2 players. I've done it. I did it when I was a kid. But and it's got the music is good, but it's repetitive because it's mostly the same song through the whole game.
It lives rent free in my head.
It does. So. It's a good song. And then it's got a really good song that is only in when you beat the game, when you can play all the different music in the game. Yeah. One of them is this really, I think it's a remake of, or it's a remix of some 70s song or whatever. I think I knew what it was the other day, and I'm forgetting. But it's a good NES tune that you can't hear through the game unless you beat it. It's weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, fun game. Yeah. There's nothing really wrong with it.
Bobble.
Yeah.
Number 36, Super C. I don't have a problem with it, I guess. You could argue it's better than Contra.
Yeah.
If you like Contra, it's more Contra.
It's more Contra, and it's not Contra Force.
Yeah. Contra Force is hot trash. Don't bother with Contra Force. Number 37, Faxanadu. I know We've played it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
I like it a lot. I'm not sure it's top 40. It's close, maybe.
I mean, again, Dragon Warrior 4 isn't on here yet.
Right.
I know it's not the same style, but like...
I still might put Willow on instead of Faxanadu or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Willow better.
Yeah.
If you had to pick that genre of game to replace it. Even like Gargoyle's Quest 2 is kind of like Faxanadu in its own weird way.
Yeah.
I would probably like that better in this spot.
Absolutely. Faxanadu, it's an action RPG. You know, it's got some straight up RPG elements. You know, you're buying different weapons and spells and items. It's actually part of the Dragon Slayer series, along with Legacy of the Wizard, which over here, we didn't see any of that, but over in Japan, it continued on with across a bunch of consoles. Eventually, you had games like Sorcerian, which I believe that came over on DOS, but not really, hardly anyone saw it over here. So, I mean, over there, it's a big, important series with a bunch of entries. Over here, it's a couple of NES games that, you know, a few people played.
Yeah.
So I could sort of see why it showed up on some, and it was a pretty popular game back in the day, I think. But
yeah, I mean, it's not a hard game to find. You find it all the time at game stores for $10-15. I mean,
yeah, it's got pretty good sound. It's got kind of muddy graphics.
Yeah, the graphics are like the color palette for the graphics are very brown.
Yeah. Yeah,
brown.
The monsters are the monster sprites are kind of weird. They're supposed to be dwarves.
Yeah.
But they're like these little weird,
I don't know if that was a translation thing or something, but
yeah. It's all right. It's got a lot of bugs. Like there's literally a necklace at the end that does the reverse of what it's supposed to power you up, but it actually weakens you. Yeah. So you're better off not getting it.
Yeah, if you want to play the game on hard mode, you can buy that item early, I thought.
Well, no, you don't get the item until late in the game.
I thought there was like an attack item that was supposed to
That's what it is. But you get it late in the game. Okay. So like if you want to nerf yourself for the last few bosses, you get the necklace.
Okay. Otherwise, for some reason I thought it was earlier.
Yeah, it's fine.
So yeah, Faxanadu, I would have it in my top 60.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd have it this high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number 38 though, we have Ninja Gaiden 2, which I mean I would put in Ninja Gaiden's place, which I wouldn't even have that high anyway.
Yeah.
I would say probably in my top 25 I'd have Ninja Gaiden 2.
Yeah, still not a huge favorite of mine, but it's definitely better.
Yeah, it's a good game. It's very solid.
Yeah.
I mean,
I liked the ninja clones and the different attacks and the sword upgrades and other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you're still getting that. Like the bosses are much harder in Ninja Gaiden 2 than they are in 1, other than like the end boss. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I don't know. Balancing wise, it's just much different.
I need to play through this again, but I think wasn't there more tricks with this one of trying to get your clones into a certain place because they're invincible and you could just attack.
Yeah, but it's so awkward to do sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Kind of reminds me of Ninja Spirit on the TurboGrafx and some other systems.
I don't think I played that one.
It's very similar, and so I mean it's more of a straightforward. It's you have fewer options and fewer power ups, but you do have a ninja clone thing, and it plays similar in some ways.
Okay. A
little more straightforward, maybe.
Yeah, like I said, 38. Like I wouldn't argue with this, but it's a weird placing for it.
Yeah.
Number 39, though, I'm not a huge fan of ice hockey. I think it was put on here because a hockey game. I don't know, but like it's okay.
Yeah, personally, I like it better than Blades of Steel, but that's just because I'm not a huge hockey fan, and it's a little more arcadey, a little less simulation-y. Not that Blades of Steel is very simulation-y, but
sure. But would you have it in your top 40?
Maybe. I mean, I played this game. This game is a fun game with multiplayer. Okay. This is one of those. If multiplayer is an option, yes. If it's single player only, probably not.
Okay.
But it is a really, really fun multiplayer game. I played this game with other people a lot. It's one of those like a Tecmo Bowl, same thing. Like it's a really fun game to play with other people.
Oh, that's the thing. Like I love Super Tecmo Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Even like the original Tecmo Bowl. It's just a fun pick up and play. Ice hockey, I guess, I don't know. I never grew up in ice hockey. I never even grew up in Super Tecmo Bowl, but I would rather play one of those over ice hockey. I played ice. I don't know. I can't get into ice hockey as much.
I think it helps that it's short and there's not too much to it.
Yeah.
You just pick what you want more of the fat guys that have a harder swing, or do you pick the little wimpy guys that are faster, and you decide what you want, and then it's getting how good are you at avoiding their guys and getting the puck into the net, and strategizing a little bit, I guess. There's not too much to it. It's definitely not as good of a game as Tecmo Super Bowl, but as far as sports games go, it's pretty good. It's pretty fun.
I mean, it's there. Whatever. I guess if you really like hockey,
yeah.
Whatever. I don't know.
I wouldn't
don't like it in the top 40.
I wouldn't say it has to be in the top 40. I feel like if you wanted to pick your big list of games that you need to have for the NES, you need a few sports games, and this is one of the better ones.
Sure. I don't know. Like when I look at this list and I see like the glaring like misfires, like that's one of them that kind of pops up along with Rygar and Battletoads and RC Pro and TMNT 2, which does not deserve its spot.
Yeah.
Number 40 though is a game I think you and I both love.
Yes.
Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest.
Yes.
This game got so much shit for just being on AVGN like 20 years ago at this point.
Ben, it is a terrible night to have a curse.
This fucking game rules. This game rules. I started playing it again the other day, recording gameplay for this next thing I'm doing. And like, I just started playing it for like a straight hour.
This is another one of those games I would rent and play.
I love this game. Yeah. Like, yes, there are some janky elements. Do not listen to the townspeople because they're just full of shit. But like, each town has somebody in a black cloak. That's the only people you need to talk to. There's some cryptic shit, like you have to use the holy water to I don't know, disintegrate platforms to find the people you need to talk to get certain upgrades.
Yeah.
Once you understand that that's just how the game works, it's a very easy game to play.
Yeah. I will say there's some jank, like I said. There's a lot of optional weapons, most of which are pretty useless. Like, nobody really needs the diamond for anything. You know, no one needs the throwing flame, except that it's really good against bosses.
Yeah.
There's a couple things.
But the flame is like not even out of the way though.
No.
I mean, it's so easy to find.
It's mostly just, you just find neat, fun stuff. There's that golden dagger, which is really cool, but you could completely miss it.
And there's not necessary.
There's the silver knife that's the same way. You can get all these whip upgrades, but you don't need to.
They do help farming.
They do help.
It makes it faster. You can argue that the bosses are a complete joke. I mean, they are.
There should have been a boss in every single mansion. And
the ones that do have them are a joke.
Yeah, you can literally walk past them and ignore them entirely.
And they do drop like items if you do kill them, but like the items are completely unnecessary.
Yeah, and literally Dracula at the end is the worst end boss in history, I think.
Well, if you fight him without the fire, does he actually do stuff?
Yeah. I mean, he literally spins around the room and he does quite a bit of damage, I think, potentially. But yeah, I don't even think I knew about, or I had necessarily played it enough to figure out the thing with the fire. I think I just would throw the golden dagger at him, which would do a lot of damage, and you could still. I think I just used the laurels because laurels make you invincible.
Oh, that's true.
You just go invincible and you just wail on him. You bring enough laurels that you can stay invincible long enough to kill him. He's not hard to kill in a variety of ways.
Yeah,
but and again, that whole last thing is empty. Like, there's so many. It feels so rushed. Somehow. I really. And again, for the maybe the earliest actual Metroidvania game, which I really enjoy, I would have really have loved back in the day to have seen a finished version of this. What they could have done with it.
Oh, sure, for sure.
What they did later on with Symphony of the Night. Obviously scaled way back, but
yeah, it's a nice precursor for what was to come, and I think it's a solid NES game that just got a lot of shit for a lot of years.
Yeah,
but man, like the music track in this game is just all time good.
Oh yeah,
just. Yeah. Even though it only has like what 2, 3, well no, it's got
a decent
like 5 tracks that are all bangers.
Yeah, yep.
So
I love this game. Yeah.
Number 41 though, and there's only a couple left that I see. I think it's on day 43 or something.
Yeah, they were kind of talking about taking it to 50.
Yeah, and at this point you kind of get into the what's left category.
Yes.
And there's a lot that's left. Like I have this stack of games next to us that has a lot of games that never made it on here.
I have a list too.
Yeah, Dave has a list. I'll go through kind of what's on the stack of just stuff that should be on here. And then the rest is a lot of personal preference stuff I'll put in there. Like Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu, which we talked about earlier. I love that game. I understand if it's not in anyone's top 80.
That's another one of those that you look at the game, you look at the art on the front screen and on the box and stuff, and it's like,
yeah, it looks janky. Like little Nemo Dream Master, fun little game. Probably not in the. Oh, it actually might get in the top 50. We'll see. But like, there's stuff like that. There's all the Mega Man titles that now will need a spot somewhere because they're all good. Yeah. Other than you can argue Mega Man 1 kind of sucks, but
it's still fine.
I would say it sucks in like a 4-star game style of sucks. But, we'll just quickly go over. So 41 is Dr. Mario. Whatever. I mean, I'm not a Dr. Mario fan, but I know a lot of people love it.
I guess if you're reaching for a puzzle game on a system that wasn't really known for puzzle games, it's the runner up to Tetris, I guess.
Right. Is it good? Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's not my favorite puzzle game.
It's got good
the
music's
music's catchy as hell. Yeah,
music's good.
And the gameplay's fine.
I get bored with it really quick.
So do I. Yeah, and then it becomes like when it gets hard, it becomes too hard for me to actually do anything about. So
I think the big thing for me is a lot of these puzzle games, like things like Puyo Puyo and stuff. Like you get good at when you get good at them, you do crazy like chains and stuff, and I feel like you can't really do a lot of that with Dr. Mario.
I feel like this game it punishes you so hard for misplacing one pill.
Yeah. It's just it doesn't have some of the what you would see in a really good puzzle game later. Aside from, like I said, it feels a little more like a Tetris, but like we just need to do a version of Tetris.
Yeah.
You know?
A not so good version of Tetris.
Yeah.
But it's fine. If you want to say it's in the top 50, I can't argue against it. It's just probably not my top 50.
Yeah.
42, this is the last one that's on the list that I'm looking at, unless there was something else I didn't see. But 42 is Excitebike, which, I mean, it's not mine.
Yeah. I was always kind of ambivalent about Excitebike. I'd play it a little bit here and there and then get bored.
Yeah, it's fun for like a good 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you play pretty much through the entire game.
Yeah. And there's a lot of replay value there with creating your own map, your own stages and stuff, which is cool, but you can't save them, I believe.
Yeah.
It's like you just, as long as you have the game running, you can have other people play through your courses.
I mean, it's a fun little time trial game, but that's about what it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't have like, you can't do like cool jump moves or anything. I mean, it's just
it's a neat mechanic looking for more of a game. I think there's like a Motocross Maniacs game on the Game Boy that did that mechanic better. It did more with it.
Yeah. I mean, if you like Excitebike, fine. If you want to, try to beat your best time, fine.
It's a pretty basic black box game.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's 20 minutes of fun, and then you're just kind of done with it.
Well, and again, we kind of said like the black box era. That was that chasing arcade era, right?
Yeah, I'm not a black box game fan.
I mean,
I'm just not.
I excuse most of the black box games because that was when most of those games were coming out at a time when the ColecoVision and some of those things were still in the recent memory, and you had like the Sega Mark, not the actual Master System yet, but it was like the Mark III or whatever before. Or the SG-1000 or either before the Mark III. So you had these games these consoles that were just trying to do good arcade ports, and that was all, and that was enough. And you didn't have to have a game that you could beat. You didn't have to have anything but a score attack basically. Yeah. And most of those first few dozen games, especially on the NES, are like that.
And the quarters are free at home.
Yeah, and they're fine, but they're. When we turned the corner of Mario and Zelda, you start to expect more out of your games, right?
Right. I mean, most of the Black Box games were early releases, right? If not the earliest releases.
They are by definition, I think.
Yeah. So after that, like, I don't know. As a kid, I liked going to the arcade.
Yeah.
But I got way more out of a Zelda than I ever did out of any Black Box game that exists.
Well, that's kind of one of the big differences between like the NES and something like the 7800.
Yeah.
Atari still thought, I think, Jack Tramiel came in and kind of wrecked everything, but parts of the company, I think, thought they could coast on arcade ports, and some certain other companies, or maybe it's just the fact that they got the vendor, the other game makers on their side who were doing these
like things. Legit developers.
That's probably more of it, but again, you see a console like the NES that got a lot more of these Zelda style games. That's where the industry was going. That was more important.
Yeah, so that's it for the Reddit top 50. Dave, kind of give me your thoughts. You got a bunch of stuff written down there. I kind of want to hear where you're going to go with it.
Yeah, I could just go through my list quick and list off some of my notes, and then we can cover what else you have on your list, I guess.
I mean, I literally have a pile of games, so I'm going to do a video soon of the NES games that you should own. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're they basically are the best of the best, but as far as like pricing goes, it kind of takes some of that into consideration.
Yeah.
But I mean, so what did you see what do you have that's like completely left out of this list that you would have liked to see in the top at least 40?
Yeah, so I wanted to see Adventure of Lolo 3. Okay. I think you could put any of the Lolo games, but I think 3 is slightly better. It's a pretty unique play style, and it worked well, and it's fun.
Yeah, I haven't played through the Lolo games, but I understand what they are. I mean, it looks good.
I guess you could throw Kickle Cubicle in there as well. It's kind of the same sort of thing, but I think Lolo is probably better.
I liked Fire and Ice a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's a really fun one. Even like Puzznic, which no one never talks about. That's a pretty fun game.
Yeah. So there's that. So yeah, it's a good kind of, I guess you could call it a puzzle or a platformy puzzle game kind of.
Yeah.
Arkanoid, with controller maybe.
with the gyro controller.
Without the controller, it's debatable if it's as fun, but it's still for a Breakout game to be still fun in the NES era, when nobody cared about Breakout anymore.
Yeah, out of the arcade games that are on NES, Arkanoid and Bubble Bobble are like the two favorite of mine.
Yeah,
I do have the Arkanoid controller, but like I suck at Arkanoid. I still love the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for a system that didn't come with a paddle, like the 2600 or something, to have, it's like, I think as a kid, I didn't even realize it came with that, or I probably would have, pushed to get one, because it would have been fun.
Yeah, no, I just happened to find one in a lot a couple years ago, but I would say that's probably one of the, like, randomly hardest NES games that are out there to, like, actually beat Arkanoid, even though it's not very long. It gets incredibly hard later on.
I've never been terribly good at it.
I mean, I can get past like the first 3-4 levels, and then I usually die out.
Yep. Then we got Balloon Fight, which personally I consider slightly better than NES Joust, and I do really like Joust, but especially the arcade. Yeah. But I really just like Balloon Fight, and that's one of those rare black box games that's just fun and consistently fun, and I can just replay that over and over again. It's just super fun and nostalgic. It's got that quirky early NES black box sound.
Sure. Yeah, I've never been a fan of Balloon Fight. I'm not going to fight you on it. It's whatever. Yeah. Again, that's a black box game, isn't it?
It's a black box game. Yeah. It's basically a Joust clone before they came out with actual Joust.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard for me to invest more than 20 minutes in a black box game personally. So
it does have it has the regular mode, and then it has the balloon trip mode where you just it's just a survival thing, which is kind of neat. So it gives some replay value. Then you got Baseball Stars 1 or 2.
Sure, if you want a baseball game.
Yeah, one of those two probably.
They're pretty much considered always the best ones. There's like a Little League Baseball is pretty fun for like a shallow baseball sim. So
yeah, that
plays a lot like extra innings, which I really like for the Super Nintendo, even though that's again a very arcadey style baseball game.
But yeah, I think it has some features in there, kind of like Tecmo Super Bowl kind of stuff where you can do a little more.
Yeah, I do. It has some weird names, and I forgot the name. Like the women's team has some kind of vulgarish names in Baseball Stars.
Yeah, they didn't get any kind of licensing with this game.
No.
But, yeah. Anyway, Donkey Kong Classics I would throw on there. Again, another, technically that one isn't a black box game, but the Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. were black box games.
Right, and this one just has both.
It's a better release. Get that one. They're not perfect. You lose the pie level, which almost everything lost the pie level until till the much later. But they're basically arcade perfect. Yeah. Great games.
Yeah, they play wonderful if that's your style of game.
Yeah. So again, it's still in the arcade era of NES.
Yeah.
It's a good representation of that era. Dragon Quest IV we mentioned.
Yeah, I mean it's a travesty. A lot of the stuff got on there before Dragon Warrior 4, Dragon Quest, whatever you want to call it.
It's the best RPG on the NES. I will fight people on that one.
Yeah, and I couldn't argue with you. I mean, it's fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it when I played through it.
Yep. Gargoyle's Quest 2 we mentioned before. I like it even better than the Game Boy version, which I really loved. It's just an amazing game for the time. It's really fun. It's got, who would have thought that the Red Aramar, who was already sort of a notorious character in Ghouls and Ghosts, for a one shot boss. Well, I guess he showed up at the end of the game too, but just a random creature. He became his own hero of his own games, and not that many, but enough that
Well, what's funny is like all those games are pretty damn good.
Yeah,
Gargoyle's Quest 2, and then what the Demon's Crest.
Demon's Crest, yeah. I would love to see them do more with him.
Yeah, I love Demon's Crest. One of my favorite Super Nintendo games. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I love Gargoyle's Quest 2. It's one of those pricey ones, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, it's pricey, but it's not like multiple hundreds, right?
Yeah, it's not utterly ridiculous.
It's like it could be like 120, 150-ish, somewhere around there. But
it's not it's maybe not a casual collector game, but it's...
No.
But I like it. This is one I rented and beat back in the day. I loved it.
And you came over probably a couple years ago now when we played through it one day. So, I mean, game's great.
Little Samson, again, it kind of deserves the hype, not if not the price tag.
Yeah, it doesn't deserve the price tag, but it does deserve a lot of the hype.
It is.
It's a very good game.
It is a ridiculously good platformer. Again, hardly anyone even knew about it because of how late it came out.
Yeah.
And along the same line, I would throw Mr. Gimmick and Panic Restaurant. Similar things, expensive games. You didn't really see them much back in the day because hardly anyone was still playing NES back then.
I have more fun with Samson than I do Panic Restaurant.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit more to do.
Yeah.
And more, like, every character in Little Samson has, like, a different style of platforming, so you can use them in a lot of different situations. And the boss fights look awesome in Little Samson. Yeah,
Little Samson I think is the best of them. Panic Restaurant has some neat different weapons and stuff, but it's a little more basic, and Gimmick I haven't really gotten into as much. It's very unique, but the whole thing with the star and riding the star and some of that stuff.
I've never really gotten the controls of Gimmick down well enough to do anything in that game.
Yeah, but it's a pretty good game. I don't know if I would say they definitely need to be on a top list, but they are pretty technically good games, and they're all pretty fun.
Yeah, there was a new Mr. Gimmick game that came out for Switch recently or something.
Yeah. Then I would personally throw Mario Brothers on the list, arguably the classic version.
The arcade versus game or whatever.
Well, yeah, it's basically the same game, but it's got more of the like the cutscenes kind of ish stuff. It plays basically identically the same, I think, and it's just another great arcade port.
Yeah, I'd probably put that on my top 100. I'm just not. Again, I'm so anti black box.
For me, it's those few really really big Nintendo arcade games. If I go to an arcade, I'm gonna play a Donkey Kong. I'm gonna play a Donkey Kong Jr.
Sure.
I'm gonna play a Mario Brothers. It's gonna happen. I would throw Mighty Final Fight on there. I think it's a really fun port. Again, this is how you do a arcade port right of a game that is not going to work on the NES.
Yeah, I think in its place, I'd probably put Battletoads and Double Dragon.
Yeah, I mean, they're both pretty good. I kind of prefer Mighty Final Fight, but, either way.
Yeah, I would prefer the other, but, I mean, one of them could make the top 50-ish.
It is a shame that you don't have two-player on Mighty Final Fight, but you do...
That is a big bummer. Yeah.
There is that weird thing. I think the second player can actually play some of the enemies, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That's another one I rented. I wasn't able to beat it, but it was fun. Miss Pac-Man I threw on there, which I think out of the 4, different variant Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man games, that the specifically the Tengen Miss Pac-Man I think is the best one because it added more cool stuff. There's actually a 2-player version or 2-player mode. So yeah, it's Pac-Man and it's fun. And Power Blade 1 or 2 or both, they're...
Yeah, I haven't played through 2. We've both, I think, played through 1 together one day. And it's a great platformer. Yeah. It's a Mega Man style. Just, I was actually playing it the other day. Like, the music is great in that game.
Yep. And
really good.
On the same note, Shatterhand.
Yep.
It's right up there with Power Blade. Some of these later games that you'd see them in Nintendo Power, but other than that, that was right when Nintendo Power was starting to pivot towards, or right before they were starting to pivot to the Super Nintendo stuff, I think.
Yeah.
So.
There's a lot of wonderful little, like, Mega Man clones that are on there. Yep. And then some not so good ones, too, like the Crying Conquest. But
Right.
And Wampum is average. But.
Yeah. Yep. Then Smash TV is a pretty good arcade port, and it's got that neat mode where you can use both gamepads.
Oh, really?
You use the D-pad on controller 1 and controller 2, so because you use one to move and one to shoot.
I wonder, does that game play pretty good with the NES Advantage, or?
I haven't really played it in a while, but I have to check. I'm trying to remember if you can use the 4-player mode to have both people playing with 2 controllers. I'd have to check, but I know 1 player can use both controllers, which is just neat. You'd see that occasionally on something from Atari, or like I think they did a Robotron version on one or other the consoles that did the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think it might have been the 5200. It might have even come with a thing that would hold both controllers together, so you could, So that I just find that neat, and it's like I said, it's a good arcade port. It's a fun game.
Yeah, I always really like Smash TV. I just hate how the bosses are just like pure bullet sponge, though. Yeah,
there's not much to it. It's kind of one of those games like Rampage where it's just kind of doing the same thing over and over. It does get a little old, but it's a pretty fun game. Then I throw Strider in there. I don't know if it's maybe underrated or just not talked about much, but the NES version of Strider is, I think, really good. It reminds me a lot of Zelda 2 in some ways.
Okay.
It's a side-scrolly, you got some neat effects like the wall jump, and you got a bunch of kind of spells that you can use, like healing and jump
Yeah.
and other things, and you're going from stage to stage trying to find keys and trying to get data discs and things like that. And it's a Nintendo Power game. You know, if you don't understand how certain things work, you'll get frustrated. But
Yeah.
it's a fun
I know
game.
I'm not good at it myself.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't super get into the original Strider. I think it got a little bit better maybe as the genre went on, like with Sega Genesis, but
Yeah, I really loved the arcade game, and this is another one of those, you're not going to do the Strider arcade game justice,
Yeah.
but they did a good alternate version of it, so I give them credit for that. Super Dodgeball has to be on.
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it's
really
just
fun 2-player game.
really fun 2-player. That's even really fun 1-player.
Yeah.
You know, playing the different teams, they all have different, special attacks and stuff, and it's just always fun. And maybe a little short if you play through the campaign,
Yeah.
but whatever, it's still fun. And then finally, Willow, we mentioned earlier, is maybe the best Zelda 1 clone other than Crystallis.
Yeah, I would put Crystallis ahead of it.
Yeah.
But they are different play styles. A little bit.
Yeah,
I mean,
a little bit.
Willow has the unfortunate, I would say Willow is more grindy
Yeah.
than Crystallis.
Yeah.
Where in the end game, you really have to grind for levels in order to actually be able to beat it.
Yeah.
And it does have that asshole end boss fight that you have to, perfectly kill
Yes.
before your mana runs out.
Yeah, and Willow doesn't look as pretty, but the sound
But
is
it
good.
is pretty, though.
It is, but maybe a little rougher than...
Sure.
The lines could be a little cleaner and stuff, but it's still pretty good. I enjoy it.
Yeah, Willow's fantastic. If anyone hasn't played Willow and likes the Zelda 1 style, play some Willow.
Yeah, so that's my list of ones that, why were these left off?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm looking at my stack of games right now, and I'm trying to talk into the mic, so I hope this isn't horrible. But I'm trying to see if there's some that were left off that absolutely need to be on there.
Oh, there's Double Dribble. That's super important for anyone that cares about basketball, I guess.
I mean, there's always the Mega Man titles, right? You could argue 2 through 6, and in whatever order you want. 2 is always pretty much seen as the top one. 3 somewhere after.
Yeah.
4, 5, 6 are still very good. I actually love 6. It looks like almost a Super Nintendo era game.
Yeah.
And it plays great too, and there's a lot of secret stuff in 6.
You mentioned Vice Project Doom earlier.
Yeah, Vice Project Doom is very good. I'm not a huge fan of the level design in that game. I don't think the driving stages are as good as they should be. And I don't like some of the control choices.
But for, considering how often a game would pull off a multi-genre thing, it's pretty much that one and that one and our other favorite one, our Guardian Legend, that actually pulled it off. So it's...
Sure, I think Guardian Legend pulls off both of its genres better than Vice Project Doom does.
Yeah.
Vice Project Doom is not a perfect platformer, and it's definitely not a perfect driving stage style game.
Sure.
Both, I would say, are very good.
Yeah.
Just, I don't it's in my top 75. Yes, Vice Project Doom is in there.
Yep. And then we were talking about the TMNT, the remaining TMNT games.
Yeah, TMNT 1 I would play over 2 and 3, and 3 I would play over 2.
Yep.
2 is monotonous and boring as shit once you get past kind of the first few levels. 3 is kind of like that too, but it does switch it up quite a bit more.
Let's see, I think we had Heavy Barrel there and Marble Madness.
Right, I love Heavy Barrel.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't put it in my top 50, but it's somewhere, it's in my top 80.
It's
somewhere. It has a place.
Doing Ikari Warriors right.
Yeah, it's a good version of Ikari Warriors.
Yeah.
There's 3 fucking Ikari Warriors games. It's ridiculous, but there's only one Heavy Barrel. So
yeah.
What else do I have?
You could throw Guerrilla War in there, but we were both saying I think we both like Heavy Barrel better.
Yeah, I love Heavy Barrel.
Marble Madness, I think.
Marble Madness is a fun game.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd put it in the list or not, but maybe.
It'd be in my top something.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be in my top 40, probably not my top 50. It would be somewhere up there. I love Bucky O'Hare.
Yeah.
It is a great Mega Man style game with excellent music, good controls, the graphics, hit or miss. But man, it's a very hard game that's also very fair because it gives you unlimited continues.
Mm-hmm.
You will beat it, and you don't lose power-ups after you gain them either, and they're very generous with the power-ups, so all of your characters will get maxed out, and all of them have a use somewhere in the game. So you're not just, like Little Samson, for example, you always use basically the mouse for almost everything. In Bucky O'Hare, you will be switching your characters in and out quite frequently to use their abilities.
I think you were talking before about Shadowgate and maybe some of the other Maniac Mansion, some
So
of those.
I do not love point and click adventure games.
Yeah.
Your Maniac Mansion, your Shadowgate, and your Princess Tomatoes.
Yeah.
But if you like that style of game, it could be in your top 50 or your top 75. A lot of people, Maniac Mansion was mentioned many times in this Reddit list.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's enough fans of that genre of game to really push it over and push it in there.
Yeah, left. I mean, that was a game that was more of a PC genre.
It looks great.
Those are decent.
It's cool as hell.
They're decent attempts of that genre on the NES.
Yeah, that game has so much character.
Yeah.
And you have your three characters that you pick from, and they all kind of talk with each other, and they all have their own dialogue. And
right.
It's just, my style of game is not so much like just... I don't know. I've never been good at the Sam and Max styles. I just suck at those. There's also games like Kung Fu, which I don't like Kung Fu at all.
I do.
But I understand why people are into it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's nostalgic. You can just sit down and play at any time and enjoy yourself, I think.
Yeah. What else is there?
Looks like you had 1943 on there.
Yeah, there's Gunnak. Was Jackal on here or no?
I didn't see it. That probably should be.
Jackal will get in the top 50. I saw a ton of votes for it. I would put Jackal easily above like an Excite Bike or something like that. I mean, Jackal is an excellent Konami, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Excellent Konami game, excellent two-player game, even an excellent one-player game. It's a great top-down shooter. You get cool you don't get that many power-ups, but you power up your missile. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard, but it's very fair. Yeah. I've beaten it, before. It's pretty good.
Looks like you had Bomberman 2 on there as well.
Yeah, Bomberman 2. If you're into Bomberman style games, Bomberman 1 sucks. Mm. The music is jank, the gameplay is jank, the graphics are jank as hell. Bomberman 2 looks like a Super Nintendo Bomberman title and sounds great. The theme of Bomberman 2 will be stuck in your brain forever if you play through that game. It's got the same power-ups you'll see in any Bomberman game, and it looks fantastic. I'd fully recommend Bomberman 2 if you can afford it, or play it on a ROM.
I think we had talked about Ghosts and Goblins as well.
Yeah, Ghosts and Goblins. Hey, I actually really like Ghosts and Goblins.
Yeah.
It is a janky-ass game.
It is.
Let's be completely honest about that. It is
But
good.
so was the arcade, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is arcade. Like, it plays so well. It doesn't play, like, horribly slowed down. I mean, at some points it does, but I mean,
again, play the arcade. It's not the arcade. I prefer Ghouls and Ghosts, but I do still like Ghosts and Goblins. It always did play a little jankier than Ghouls and Ghosts.
Yeah, I do have to save scum the hell out of that game if I want to get anywhere on it, or I just have to just pick a day where I'm going to spend 8 hours getting through it,
getting good enough to
So I don't if you like Ghosts and Goblins, great. I get it.
Yep.
What else is on there? I do have Gunnak in there. If you like your shooter style games, Gunnak should be in your top 60 at least somewhere.
Yeah, you mentioned Dragon Spirit too.
Dragon Spirit, I love that game. Yeah. I think everyone would if they bother playing it.
Yeah, I think Gunnak was the one I was thinking. I always get that confused with Xanac because I don't ever remember either one of them very well.
I think a lot of people like Xanac. I've never actually sat down and played it, so I could not give an honest opinion about it.
Yep.
Is there anything else on there? I mean,
you might have had a couple on the far right there.
What's underneath there? No, that's just Strider and the Dodgeball.
I had suggested maybe Shinobi, which I don't know if is a great game, but it's actually a pretty good arcade port.
Yeah, I mean, there's other shooter games like 1943. A lot of people kind of grew up on it, like that style of like the old biplane or whatever style of shooters. Very good.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those, like your Sky Shark and some of those are just really generic, you know, especially if you don't have a lot of power-ups and stuff, they get kind of samey.
I'm trying to think, like Ninja Gaiden 3 is not on the list. You could easily argue it's better than even 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. I think it's just up to preference. And if they had unlimited continues in 3, I think it would be a lot higher on people's lists.
Yeah, I think you had thrown Paperboy on there too, of all things.
Yeah, Paperboy would easily be in my top 50 somewhere, but probably in the later half of top 50. It's a shallow game. It's an arcade port that I like better than the arcade. I hate the arcade version of Paperboy with the stupid like handles that you have to use for it because it plays so bad. But the NES version is one of those games that not a lot of people have actually beaten. because
it does not
it does get very hard, but you can learn how to cheese the game by staying on the inner track of the sidewalk. That way the skateboarding asshole cannot actually hit you when he comes down. He's the hardest enemy in the game to dodge.
Yeah.
So never go in the street, always go through the lawns, and always stay on the very left-hand edge of the sidewalk.
My problem with that game is I'm just not good at aiming the papers to, you have a pretty short window of time to get them onto the stoop or whatever.
Right. If you want to just beat the game, all you need is one house.
Right.
If you want to be good at the game, which I am not that good, you have to try to get all the houses and then actually gain subscriptions throughout the week.
Yeah.
And incredibly hard to do.
And not go through windows.
And not bash people's windows and stuff, which, I love me some Paperboy, and that music is the most relaxing stuff you'll ever hear.
I don't know if you would, if some people would want to put one of the skating kind of games on there. I wouldn't, but
see, a lot of people really like Skate or Die, but it's not a great game.
No,
it is like a collection of basically little mini games. Like even like TNC Surf Design, a lot of people love that game. Yeah, let's be real, it's kind of janky. It's fun for what it is, but
that's kind of my thought on like Track and Field 2 also. Like they're mini game, they're kind of janky mini game titles, like the winter games and summer games, and a lot of those things like. Those are kind of a relic from the Atari era that I didn't think really needed to be on the NES.
Yeah, you could easily skip them and you wouldn't be missing a whole lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it. I mean, I did have Anticipation in my pile. If you're going to pick a Trivial Pursuit or a game show style of game, I would have Anticipation over like a Jeopardy game.
Sure.
Because Anticipation, I will say, incredibly fun multiplayer game.
Yeah.
It is fun to beat your friends in there because you have to essentially buzz in at each little quiz thing they're doing, and it's just a connect to the dot style game.
Right.
So they split this game up into different categories like leisure, objects, animals, letters, whatever. And it all it does is just start drawing whatever it is on the screen, and you have to buzz in and basically just input in the alphabet like what it is.
Right.
And it's very fun 2-player. My wife beats the shit out of me at it. I cannot beat her at that game, but if you're looking for a game show style game to even like play with your kids or just whoever, it's very fun.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think that's about it. I don't see anything else on there that we haven't probably covered or needs to be talked about.
Yeah, I mean there's a wide stretch of other, average, 3 to 4 star games that we haven't thrown on here, but they don't necessarily belong on a top list,
Yeah, there's a lot of other great platformers, like the Flintstones games, for example, are pretty decent. There's like a Jetson one that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Again, Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu. There's even like Felix the Cat. A lot of people like.
There's some
Wacky Racers is really good.
There's some halfway decent, first person dungeon crawly games that
Dave loves.
I actually like Dungeon Magic, and I think the Pool of Radiance game is actually okay, but they're, they weren't really meant to be on the NES.
No, a lot of people love the Wizards and Warriors style games. I cannot possibly get into them. They don't mesh with me.
Some people really like the Wizardry games and the Ultima games. I'm not hugely into either.
Yeah. What is that? Pipe Dream I actually really like. It's a fun little puzzle game.
Pipe Dream's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's Fire and Ice, Solomon's Key, which are fun little puzzle games.
Yeah, I guess there's more than I gave credit for, but most of them don't really, they're not at that Tetris level.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, once the list, if it ever goes to like top 100, you're going to see basically anything you've ever heard of in there.
Right.
Whether or not it should be in there or not,
Yeah, and you're gonna see certain people promoting fun stuff or meme stuff or your Deadly Towers or whatever.
Danny Sullivan's in Heat or whatever. I would say that's pretty much most of the stuff worth discussing.
Yeah.
Until you get into like your kind of like niche favorites that you grew up on. So I don't know, Dave. You have any other thoughts on this one or?
No, again, it was an interesting food for thought, but it was kind of more of a popularity list, so I don't know.
Yeah, some of those early choices just kind of get on me. That's why I wanted to talk about it, Dave, just to see where you're at and where I'm at. And
yeah, we're just two people on the internet here, but
TMNT2 in the top 15 is not right.
No,
was that in the top 20? Whatever it was, I already closed it out. But
there's a few things in there that were just not right, and there's a few other things like how on earth do you leave Dragon Warrior 4 off this list.
Oh my god.
How?
RC Pro-Am beat Dragon Warrior 4.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
All right.
I just can't even.
We're signing off.
All right.
See ya.
Have a good one.